When my son's bride whispered about putting me in a nursing home at their own wedding reception, I smiled through my tears and sold the beach house the very next day. 3 hours later, my phone lit up with her name, and that's when I realized sometimes the most devastating betrayals come gift-wrapped in white lace. If you're watching this story unfold, please subscribe and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to defend yourself against family betrayal. Trust me, you'll want to see how this one ends. I suppose every mother dreams of her son's wedding day. I certainly did. For 32 years, I imagined standing proudly as my boy, my Michael, committed himself to a woman worthy of his kindness. Someone who would love him the way I had, fiercely, completely, without calculation. What I never imagined was hiding in the bathroom at his reception, mascara streaking down my cheeks, clutching my chest as though I could physically hold my heart together. But let me back up. The wedding itself was beautiful, almost offensively so. The Henderson Beach Resort, with its pristine white sand and turquoise waters, had been transformed into something from a glossy magazine. White roses and hydrangeas cascaded from every surface. Crystal chandeliers had been hung from the beachfront tent. Champagne flowed like water. "You've outdone yourself, Catherine," my sister-in-law Martha whispered as we watched Michael and Vanessa exchange vows. "The beach looks magical." I smiled tightly. I can't take credit. Vanessa and her mother planned everything. This wasn't entirely true. What I meant was that Vanessa and her mother had completely dismissed my every suggestion, steamrolled over family traditions, and presented me with bills that made my accountant pale. But a mother doesn't say such things at her son's wedding. A mother smiles. A mother endures. Michael looked handsome in his tuxedo, his father's cufflinks glinting at his wrists. Robert would have been so proud to see him standing there. My late husband had been gone 7 years, but in moments like these, his absence felt fresh as yesterday. The beach house had been his dream, our dream, a place where our family would gather for generations. Now it was mine alone to protect. I felt tears threatening as Michael slid the ring onto Vanessa's finger. She really was stunning, with her cascade of dark hair and eyes that could charm anyone into giving her exactly what she wanted. That was how she'd gotten my son, after all. 3 dates, and he'd been completely captivated, bringing home a woman 10 years his junior who looked at our family's legacy with calculating eyes. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, and the crowd erupted in applause. I clapped until my palms stung, watching my son kiss his bride with the ocean breeze lifting her veil like something from a fairy tale. If only fairy tales warned about wolves in designer gowns. The reception began immediately. Waiters circulated with flutes of champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres. The band played softly as guests mingled on the expansive deck of the resort. I found myself cornered by distant relatives offering congratulations as though I'd accomplished something miraculous by surviving to see this day. "Catherine, you must be so happy," cooed my cousin Ellen, who had flown in from Phoenix. "And now you'll have the house all to yourself. Unless," she lowered her voice conspiratorially, "you're thinking of downsizing? At our age, those stairs must be getting difficult." I forced a laugh. "The beach house has an elevator, Ellen. Robert insisted on it when we renovated. Said he was planning for our golden years." What I didn't say was that the beach house wasn't just a house. It was the last piece of Robert the First had left. We'd bought it as a dilapidated cottage 30 years ago, pouring our savings and sweat into transforming it into a 3-story haven overlooking the Gulf. Every nail, every paint color, every piece of furniture had been a decision we made together. After cancer took him, I'd found solace in those walls, in the memories that lived in every corner. "Well, it's certainly a valuable property," Ellen continued. "Michael's a lucky man to have that inheritance coming." I smiled tightly. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on the cake." I moved through the crowd, nodding and smiling at faces that blurred together. The weight of playing the proud mother was exhausting. I spotted Michael across the room, his arm around Vanessa's waist as they spoke with her parents, Harold and Diane Armstrong, Boston aristocracy with old money and new disdain for anything they deemed provincial. Like me. Like the coastal town where I'd raised my son. I needed air. Making my way to the back of the tent, I slipped outside to a small garden area. The music faded slightly, replaced by the rhythmic sound of waves. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, trying to center myself. "I told you, it's perfect." Vanessa's voice cut through my moment of peace. She was just around the corner, hidden from view by a large arrangement of flowers. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" This voice belonged to someone else, one of her bridesmaids, I thought. Melissa, the one with the sharp laugh and sharper eyes. "Please. Michael believes everything I tell him." Vanessa's tone dripped with smug certainty. "We'll put his mom in a nursing home and take that beach house. I've already looked at Serenity Shores. It's nice enough that he won't feel guilty, but far enough away that we won't have to visit more than once a month." The champagne flute nearly slipped from my fingers. I gripped it tighter, blood rushing in my ears. "But what if she refuses?" Melissa asked. Vanessa's laugh was light, dismissive. "I've been planting seeds for months. How tired she looks. How forgetful she's becoming. The accident with the stove last month was the masterstroke. Michael's been worried sick about her living alone since then." My hands began to shake. There had been no accident. I'd never left the stove on. But I remembered Vanessa's voice, syrupy with concern. "Michael, I found the burner on when I stopped by yesterday. Thank God I came over. Your mother could have burned the house down." "And the prenup?" Melissa's voice dropped lower. "Won't be an issue once the house is in both our names. I've got Michael convinced it's for estate planning purposes. After that, if things don't work out between us." She left the sentence hanging. "You're absolutely evil," Melissa said, but her tone was admiring. "What about his inheritance from his father's business?" "Already working on it. But the beach house is the prize. Oceanfront property in that location? We could sell it for millions, or better yet, tear it down and build something worthy of us." Tear it down. The house where Michael took his first steps. Where Robert and I had danced in the kitchen on our anniversary. Where I'd scattered some of my husband's ashes in the garden he'd loved. I must have made a sound, because they suddenly went silent. I turned quickly, nearly bumping into a waiter, and hurried back into the reception. My face felt hot, my chest tight. Somehow, I maintained my composure as I moved through the crowd, nodding mechanically at well-wishers. The bathroom became my sanctuary. I locked the door, pressed my back against it, and finally allowed the tears to come. Not just tears of hurt, but of rage, of humiliation. My new daughter-in-law had been plotting against me before she'd even said, "I do." And my son, my beloved boy, had been blind enough to believe her lies. I splashed cold water on my face, reapplied my makeup with trembling hands, and stared at my reflection. I was 62 years old. My hair had more silver than auburn now. Lines framed my eyes and mouth. But I was not feeble. I was not ready to be discarded. "You will not break me," I whispered to my reflection. "You will not take what's mine." When I emerged, the reception was in full swing. I plastered on a smile and played my part. I danced with my son, pretending not to notice how his eyes constantly sought Vanessa. I gave a toast, my voice steady as I welcomed my new daughter-in-law to the family, though the words tasted like ash. "To Michael and Vanessa," I said, raising my glass. "May your lives together be built on honesty and trust." Vanessa met my eyes across the table, her smile never wavering. Did she suspect I'd overheard? I couldn't tell. She was too good at this game. The night eventually wound down. The newlyweds departed for their honeymoon in the Maldives, a trip I'd contributed significantly toward, thinking it a generous gift. Now I wondered if they were laughing at my naivety as they boarded their first-class flight. I drove home alone, the coastal highway dark and winding. The beach house loomed ahead, windows dark except for the porch light I'd left on. It stood 3 stories tall, weathered gray shingles and white trim glowing softly in the moonlight. From the road, you could see the wraparound deck on the second floor, where Robert and I had spent countless evenings watching the sunset. Inside, I kicked off my heels and poured myself a generous glass of bourbon. Robert's favorite. I carried it out to the deck, settling into one of the Adirondack chairs. The gulf stretched before me, black and vast under the night sky. Here, with only the sound of waves for company, I finally allowed myself to think clearly. Vanessa wanted my home. She wanted me gone, erased, tucked away where I couldn't interfere with her plans for my son's wealth. And she'd been manipulating him, positioning herself to take everything Robert and I had built. I took a long sip of bourbon, feeling it burn down my throat.
No.
This would not stand. Morning came with fierce determination. I was dressed and out the door by 7, driving not to the grocery store or the community center as I normally would, but to Franklin, Myers & Associates, the law firm that had handled Robert's estate and all our family's legal matters for decades. James Franklin was in his 70s now, but his mind remained sharp as ever. His bushy, white eyebrows rose in surprise when his secretary ushered me into his office. "Catherine, what brings you here so early? Shouldn't you be resting after the wedding festivities?" I set my purse down with more force than necessary. "I need to sell the beach house, James. Immediately." His eyebrows climbed higher. "The beach house? But Catherine, that property has been in your family for decades." I thought. "I know what I'm doing." My voice was steel. "I need it done quickly and quietly. Today, if possible." James studied me for a long moment, then reached for his phone. "Let me cancel my morning appointments." Over the next 2 hours, we worked methodically. The beach house was mine alone. Robert had made sure of that in his will. Though Michael stood to inherit it eventually, I had full authority to sell it if I chose. "I have a buyer who's been interested for years," James said, shuffling through his files. "Harrison Development has been purchasing properties all along that stretch. They've made inquiries about yours several times."
"Call them," I said.
"Tell them I'll accept their last offer, but with conditions." By noon, papers were drawn up. Harrison Development could hardly believe their luck. They'd been trying to assemble that stretch of beachfront for a luxury resort development for years, and mine was the property they coveted most. The price they offered was more than fair, significantly above market value. But money wasn't my primary concern. "I want the proceeds placed in a trust," I instructed James. "Set it up so that I control it completely during my lifetime." "And after?" he asked gently. I thought of Michael, of the boy who used to build sandcastles at the water's edge, of the man who now stood beside a woman plotting to discard me. "After my death, half goes to the Oceanside Conservation Trust. The other half to Michael, but with conditions." I leaned forward. "He can't touch a penny until he's 50, and even then, only if he's completed a financial responsibility course with an independent advisor." James wrote this down, his expression neutral. "And if he contests?" "Then it all goes to conservation." My heart ached, but my resolve held firm. I won't have Vanessa spending my husband's legacy on whatever scheme she dreams up next. By 3 o'clock, it was done. The beach house was sold. The money secured in a trust that neither Michael nor Vanessa could access. I had James arrange for a moving company to pack my belongings over the next few days. Then I returned home. No, not home anymore. To the house that had been home. I walked through each room slowly, trailing my fingers over familiar surfaces. The kitchen where Robert and I had cooked Sunday dinners. The living room where Michael had opened Christmas presents. The master bedroom with its view of endless ocean. Memories lived in these walls, but they would live in me too, even after the house was gone. I was sitting on the deck, watching the sunset one last time, when my phone rang. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but no. I wanted to hear this. "Hello, Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "What did you do?" Her voice was shrill, panic replacing her usual calculated charm.
"I'm sorry."
I feigned confusion. "The beach house," she nearly screamed. "We just got a call from some development company asking when you'd be moved out because they're scheduled to begin demolition next week." So they'd reached out to Michael as a courtesy, probably finding his contact information as my next of kin. Sooner than I'd expected, but perhaps better this way. "Oh, that," I said lightly. Yes, I sold the property. Signed the papers this morning. Silence then. You can't do that. That house belongs to Michael's family. I am Michael's family, I reminded her, ice creeping into my tone. And the house belonged to me alone. Robert made sure of that. But we had plans for that house. Her composure was cracking. I could almost see her pacing, designer heels clicking on whatever expensive flooring her parents' suite offered. Did you? I took a sip of my tea. Plans to put me in a nursing home, perhaps? Serenity Shores. Was it? I hear it's nice enough that Michael wouldn't feel guilty, but far enough away that you wouldn't have to visit more than once a month. The silence that followed was deafening. I don't know what you think you heard, she began, her voice suddenly careful. I heard everything, Vanessa. At your wedding reception. You and Melissa, discussing your plans for me and my property as though I were already dead. Michael will never believe you, she hissed, dropping all pretense. It's your word against mine, and he thinks you're already slipping mentally. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Not just the plot itself, but how methodically she'd laid the groundwork, poisoning my son against me bit by bit. Perhaps I conceded, but it doesn't matter now. The house is sold. The money is in a trust that neither you nor Michael can touch. You bitch, she whispered. I laughed softly. Is that the best you can do? I raised a son through childhood cancer. I nursed my husband through his final days. I built a life and a home with my own 2 hands. You think you can break me with a childish insult. This isn't over, she threatened. You have no idea who you're dealing with. On the contrary, I replied. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A predator who targeted my son for his inheritance. But here's what you failed to understand, Vanessa. I've been protecting that boy since before you were born, and I'm not about to stop now. I heard Michael's voice in the background, asking questions. Vanessa's muffled response. My son is there? I asked. Put him on the phone. After a moment of rustling, Michael's voice came through. Mom, what's going on? Vanessa says you sold the beach house. My heart constricted at the confusion in his voice. Yes, Michael, I did. But why? Without even talking to me? We just got back to the hotel, and there's a message about demolition schedules. I closed my eyes, picturing his face, so like Robert's, with the same furrow between his brows when he was upset. It was time, I said simply. I've made other arrangements for my future. What arrangements? Mom, are you okay? Vanessa's been worried about you. The stove incident, and now this, it seems impulsive. The stove incident, that never happened. I gripped the phone tighter.
I'm perfectly fine, Michael.
Better than I've been in a long time, actually. Sometimes letting go of the past is the healthiest thing we can do. But that house, it was Dad's favorite place. Our family's history is not contained in wood and glass, I interrupted gently. It's in us, Michael. In our memories. In the values your father and I tried to instill in you. Values like consultation before making massive decisions that affect the whole family, he shot back, anger seeping into his tone. The irony nearly made me laugh. Like protecting what matters most, I countered. Like recognizing when something precious is threatened. The only threat was you living alone in that big house. Vanessa and I were going to suggest you move somewhere more manageable, with people to look after you. We were concerned. So she'd already begun. Planting seeds of doubt about my competence, positioning herself as the caring daughter-in-law worried about the declining mother-in-law. I'm sure you were, I said, keeping my voice even. But as you can see, I'm perfectly capable of managing my affairs. By selling our family home without a word, his voice cracked. Mom, how could you? The hurt in his voice nearly broke my resolve. But then I heard Vanessa in the background. Ask her about the money. Where's the money going? Of course. That was her real concern. The proceeds are secure, I said before he could ask. I've established a trust. A trust? Now confusion mixed with his anger. What kind of trust? One that protects what your father and I built. You'll understand someday. Understand what? Mom, You're not making sense. We need to talk about this in person. We're cutting our honeymoon short and coming home. No, I said firmly. Enjoy your trip. We can discuss this when you return. But the house will be gone by then. The panic in his voice mirrored what I'd felt hearing Vanessa's plans. Yes, I agreed softly.
It will.
But I'll still be here, Michael. I'm not going anywhere. I could hear Vanessa's shrill voice demanding more information. Michael's hand must have covered the phone because their voices became muffled. When he returned, his tone had hardened. Vanessa thinks someone might be taking advantage of you. Have you spoken with the lawyer? Are you sure you understand what you're doing? The condescension in his voice, my son, questioning whether I understood my own actions, cut deep. This was Vanessa's influence, turning him against me one whispered doubt at a time. I understand perfectly, I said, steel returning to my voice. I've worked with James Franklin for decades. The same lawyer who handled your father's estate and who drew up your prenuptial agreement, if you recall. Silence. Then, you've changed, Mom, ever since Dad died. We've all changed, I interrupted. Some of us have just been more transparent about it than others. What's that supposed to mean? I considered telling him everything, laying out Vanessa's schemes, her cruel words, her plans to discard me. But what would it accomplish? He was newly married, blinded by love or whatever he thought he felt for her. My word against hers. And she had already been working to establish me as confused, declining, unreliable. It means I love you, Michael. I always will. But I need to protect myself now. From what? He demanded. From letting sentimentality cloud my judgment, I replied. The beach house was becoming a burden. This is for the best. I don't believe you, he said flatly. Something else is going on. Vanessa's voice again in the background, insistent. Then, Michael, Vanessa wants to know if you've changed your will too. And there it was. The real question. Not concern for me, but for what they stood to lose. My estate planning is private, I said coldly. Now, I need to go. There's much to arrange. Mom, wait. Goodbye, Michael. Enjoy the Maldives. I hung up before he could respond, setting the phone face down on the deck railing. The sun was sinking below the horizon now, painting the sky in fierce oranges and pinks. My last sunset from this deck. I should have felt sad, perhaps even regretful. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Liberation. The phone began ringing again almost immediately. I silenced it without looking. Let them panic. Let them wonder. For the first time since Robert's death, I was taking control of my life instead of simply reacting to loss. I went inside and poured another bourbon, raising it in a silent toast to Robert. You were right to worry about her, I murmured to the empty room. But you be proud of me now. The phone pinged with text messages. I ignored them, instead walking through the house one last time. In the study, I opened Robert's old desk, a heavy mahogany piece that would be coming with me to my new condo. From the bottom drawer, I removed a small leather journal. Robert had started keeping it when he first became suspicious of Vanessa. Something's not right about her, he told me during his final months. She asks too many questions about our finances. Watches Michael like he's a prize she's won. I hadn't wanted to believe it then. Had chalked it up to a dying man's paranoia, his fear of leaving his son vulnerable. I dismissed his concerns, telling him Michael was a grown man who could choose his own partner. Now I opened the journal and began to read. Robert's handwriting, once strong and slashing, had grown shakier toward the end. But his observations remained razor-sharp.
Incidents primers de forgotten.
Comments Vanessa had made. The way she'd isolated Michael from his college friends, subtly redirected his career ambitions toward more lucrative paths. I'd been blind. We both had been, but Robert had seen the truth sooner. On the final page, dated just a week before he died, Robert had written, "If I'm wrong about her, forgive me. But if I'm right, protect yourself and Michael however you must. The beach house is yours. Use it as your shield if necessary." My shield. I had done exactly that, though not in the way he might have imagined. By selling it, I'd removed Vanessa's primary target and secured the assets beyond her reach. The phone rang again. This time, I answered. "What did you do with the money?" Vanessa demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. She must have taken the phone to another room, away from Michael. "Hello to you too, Vanessa. Shouldn't you be enjoying your honeymoon?" "Cut the crap," she hissed. "That house was worth millions." "Where is it?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Safe. Michael deserves his inheritance. That money belongs to our family." "Yes," I agreed. "It belongs to my family, and it's been secured accordingly." "You think you're so clever," she seethed, "but you have no idea what I'm capable of." Michael believes everything I tell him. One word from me about your mental state, and I could have you declared incompetent. Cold rage washed through me. "You could try," I conceded, "but you'd fail. James Franklin has been my attorney for 30 years. He's documented my mental competence extensively throughout this process, specifically to protect against such attempts." She was silent for a moment, recalculating.
Fine. Keep your secrets.
"But know this. You've just declared war. I will make sure Michael never speaks to you again. I will make sure you die alone in whatever sad little apartment you've downgraded to." "Such a devoted daughter-in-law," I murmured. "Your concern is touching. You haven't seen what I'm capable of," she threatened. "This is just the beginning." "On that, we agree," I replied calmly. "This is indeed just the beginning." After she hung up, I sat in Robert's old armchair, his journal open in my lap. The house creaked and settled around me, as if saying goodbye. Tomorrow, the movers would come. My new condo downtown, modern, secure, with a doorman and security cameras, awaited. I had won this battle. The beach house was beyond Vanessa's reach. The money secured where she couldn't touch it. But the war? That was just beginning. She would retaliate. She would poison Michael against me even more thoroughly now. She might even escalate beyond manipulation to something more dangerous. I needed to be prepared. Opening my laptop, I began a search for private investigators. If Vanessa had secrets, and women like her always did, I needed to find them. Not just to protect myself, but to save my son from the predator he'd married. As I typed, my phone chimed with a text message. "Michael, I don't understand what's happening, but I know something's wrong. Please talk to me, Mom. Don't shut me out." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could I say? That his bride of 24 hours was a manipulative gold digger? That she'd been plotting against me before they'd even exchanged vows?
He wouldn't believe me.
Not yet. I texted back simply, "I love you. Always have, always will. Enjoy your honeymoon. We'll talk when you return." His response came quickly. "Promise me you won't make any more major decisions until then." I smiled sadly. Too late for that. The wheels were already in motion. "I promise to do what's best for our family," I wrote back. It wasn't a lie. Everything I'd done, everything I would do, was to protect what Robert and I had built. To protect Michael, even from himself. As the night deepened, I sat on the deck one last time. The moon cast a silver path across the water. Tomorrow, this view would no longer be mine. But I had something more valuable. The truth about Vanessa and the determination to expose it. My phone buzzed with another message. Unknown number, but I knew instantly who it was. "You think you're clever, but you haven't seen what I'll do next. Vanessa." Of course, she'd use a different phone, trying to intimidate me. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a photo of the text and emailed it to James Franklin with a brief note. Documentation of threats. Beginning a file. Then I returned to my research. Vanessa Armstrong, now Vanessa Mitchell. Born to wealth, private schools, brief stint at Boston University before dropping out. 3 engagements before Michael, all to wealthy men, all mysteriously broken off. Interesting. I made a note to have the investigator look into those former fiancés. People talked, especially when they'd had a narrow escape. As I closed my laptop, a strange calm settled over me. Vanessa had declared war, thinking me an easy target, a grieving widow, an aging mother, ready to be discarded. She had no idea what she'd awakened. No idea that beneath my polite smiles and maternal concern lay a woman who had fought and clawed for everything she had. "Come for me, Vanessa," I whispered to the empty night. "I'm ready." The morning after selling the beach house, I woke to 17 missed calls and the realization that in chess, as in life, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. As Vanessa mobilized her pawns against me, I remembered a truth my husband once shared. Sometimes you must sacrifice your castle to save your kingdom. If you're still watching my story unfold, hit subscribe and comment with a house if you've ever had to let go of something you loved to protect yourself from someone you should have been able to trust. The movers arrived at 8 sharp, their truck rumbling up the shell-paved driveway like a harbinger of change. 3 burly men in matching blue uniforms, hired not just for their strength, but for their discretion. James Franklin had recommended this particular company. They specialized in handling estate liquidations and sensitive relocations. Mrs. Mitchell, the oldest of the 3, approached with clipboard in hand. "I'm Carlos. We understand this is a delicate situation." I nodded, grateful for his tact. "Most of the furniture stays with the property. I've labeled the pieces coming with me." "We'll be careful with everything, ma'am." For the next several hours, I moved through the house like a ghost, directing the movers while saying silent goodbyes to each room. My phone continued to vibrate in my pocket. Michael, Vanessa, even Vanessa's mother Diana, whose name I hadn't expected to see on my screen. I ignored them all. This moment was mine alone. By noon, the items I was taking, Robert's desk, our bed, photo albums, and the art we'd collected over decades, were carefully packed into the truck. What remained would be sold with the house or donated. The new owners would tear the structure down regardless, but they'd agreed to let me leave whatever I couldn't bear to deal with. Carlos approached as his men loaded the last box. "That's everything on your list, Mrs. Mitchell. We'll meet you at the new address." I handed him the keys to my downtown condo. "I'll be along shortly. There's something I need to do first." After they left, I walked through the emptied rooms one final time. Without our possessions, the house felt different. Larger, echoing, already releasing its hold on me. In the master bedroom, I opened the French doors to the balcony and stepped out, inhaling the salt air deeply. Below, waves lapped at the shore in their endless rhythm. How many mornings had I stood here with coffee in hand, watching the sunrise? How many nights had Robert and I shared a glass of wine, planning our future? "I'm doing the right thing," I whispered, as if he could hear me. "Aren't I?" The wind offered no answer, but somewhere deep inside, I felt a certainty. Robert would have understood. He'd seen Vanessa's true nature before any of us. My phone vibrated again. "Michael." This time, I answered. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" His voice was ragged with frustration. "I've been calling for hours. I've been busy with the movers," I replied calmly. "Movers? You're actually going through with this?" Disbelief colored every word. "Where are you even moving to?" "I've purchased a condo downtown. It's lovely, Riverview, doorman, security system." "Security system?" He latched onto the word. "Are you afraid of something?" "Mom, if you're feeling unsafe." "I'm simply being prudent," I cut in. "A woman living alone should take precautions." "You weren't taking precautions at the beach house," he countered. "This is completely out of character." "Vanessa thinks." "I don't particularly care what Vanessa thinks," I interrupted, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Silence fell between us. When Michael spoke again, his tone had hardened. "What's going on between you two?" "Vanessa's been nothing but supportive. She's worried about you, we both are." I closed my eyes, fighting for composure. He was so thoroughly deceived. "There's nothing going on, Michael. I've simply made a decision about my living situation, as is my right." Without talking to me, without any warning, the beach house has been in our family for decades. Dad loved that place. We were going to raise our children there someday. "Your children?" I echoed softly. "With Vanessa." "Yes, with my wife," he snapped. "Who you've been cold to since the engagement. Don't think I haven't noticed." So that was the narrative she'd spun. The disapproving mother-in-law, jealous and resentful of the younger woman taking her son's attention. Classic. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said carefully. But my decision stands. The house is sold. I'm moving today. At least tell me where the money's going, he pressed. That was a multi-million-dollar property, Mom. Is it sitting in your checking account? Because that's not safe. The concern in his voice seemed genuine, but I recognized Vanessa's hand in the question. She'd been probing about the money from the moment she heard about the sale. The proceeds have been properly secured, I assured him. James Franklin handled everything. James? Dad's old lawyer? Mom, he has to be nearly 80. Are you sure he's still sharp enough to? James is 73 and sharper than most people half his age. I cut in. He's looking after my interests quite competently. Your interests, Michael repeated. What about our family's interests? What about my inheritance? There it was. The real concern. Not my welfare, not the loss of family history, but the money he'd expected to receive someday. Michael, I said quietly, do you hear yourself? You're on your honeymoon, and you're calling to argue about an inheritance you weren't supposed to receive for decades. Because you're acting irrationally, he exploded. Selling property, without consultation, moving without warning, being hostile to Vanessa. I've never been hostile to Vanessa, I corrected. Cool, perhaps. Reserved. But not hostile. She says you look at her like she's an intruder. That you criticize her choices subtly. That you've never accepted her. I wondered how long she'd been poisoning him against me. Months? Since they first met? Had she selected him specifically for his inheritance, researching our family's assets before engineering their chance meeting? I've always treated Vanessa with courtesy, I said carefully. If she feels otherwise, I'm sorry to hear it. Sorry doesn't fix the situation, he retorted. We're cutting our honeymoon short. We'll be home tomorrow night. There's no need. There's every need. You're dismantling our family legacy piece by piece. The accusation stung, especially because in some ways he was right. I was dismantling what we'd built, but only to protect it from Vanessa's grasping hands. When you get home, I said evenly, I'll be at the Riverfront condominiums. Unit 1102. We can talk then. The Riverfront? Those places cost a fortune. His voice rose in disbelief. How much of the beach house money are you burning through? My finances are not your concern, Michael. My patience was wearing thin. They are when you're spending my inheritance on luxury condos. The moment the words left his mouth, I knew Vanessa had done her work well. My son, who had never before questioned my financial decisions, who had built his own successful career without expecting handouts, was now demanding accounting of what he considered rightfully his. I think we should end this conversation, I said, ice-coating each word. You're upset, and I have matters to attend to. Mom, wait. Goodbye, Michael. Safe travels. I hung up, my hands trembling slightly. Leaning against the balcony railing, I took deep breaths of salt air, trying to calm the storm of emotions, hurt, anger, determination, grief. The sun I'd raised would never have spoken to me that way. This was Vanessa's influence, plain as day. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number again. You won't get away with this. Everyone will know what you've done. Another threat from Vanessa. I took a screenshot, added it to my growing file of evidence, and blocked the number. She'd find another way to contact me, no doubt, but I didn't have to make it easy for her. It was time to leave. I took one last look at the view, then turned and walked through the master bedroom, down the stairs, through the living room with its wall of windows facing the Gulf. At the front door, I paused, my hand on the knob. Goodbye, I whispered to the empty house. Then I closed the door, locked it, and placed the keys in the lockbox for the new owner's representative. My car was packed with a few personal items I hadn't trusted to the movers: jewelry, financial documents, Robert's journal. As I pulled away from the beach house for the final time, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The structure stood proud against the sky, weathered shingles glowing in the afternoon sun. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had I overreacted? Made a catastrophic mistake? Then I remembered Vanessa's cold voice. We'll put his mom in a nursing home and take that beach house. No. I had done what was necessary. The riverfront condominiums rose 20 stories above the city center, glass and steel gleaming in the sunlight. The building offered everything the beach house didn't: security, anonymity, neighbors close enough to hear if I called for help. The doorman greeted me by name as I pulled into the underground garage. "Welcome, Mrs. Mitchell. The moving truck arrived about an hour ago. Your items have been delivered to your unit." "Thank you, Edward. I'd met him during the purchase closing last week. I appreciate you keeping an eye on things." "Of course, ma'am. And just so you know, we don't allow anyone up without resident permission. If you're expecting visitors, you'll need to call down to authorize them." Perfect. One more layer of protection against whatever Vanessa might be planning. Upstairs, my new home awaited. Unit 1102 occupied half the 11th floor, 3 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. It lacked the character and history of the beach house, but it offered something more valuable now: security. The movers had placed my furniture according to the floor plan I'd provided. Robert's desk stood in what would become my home office. Our bed dominated the master suite. Family photos lined the entryway. It wasn't home yet, but it would be. I was unpacking books when my phone rang. James Franklin. "Catherine, I hope you're settling in," he said when I answered. "I wanted to update you on a few matters." "Of course, James. What's happening?" "The trust has been formally established. As we discussed, you have full control during your lifetime, with the specified disbursements after your passing." "Good. And the beach house?" "Closing was completed this afternoon. The funds have been transferred to the trust account. Harrison Development wasted no time. They've already filed demolition permits." My heart clenched at the thought, but I pushed past it. "And the other matter?" "I've spoken with Thomas Drake. He's agreed to take your case." Thomas Drake was the private investigator James had recommended, former FBI, specialized in financial fraud and asset protection. If anyone could uncover Vanessa's secrets, it would be him. "When can we meet?" "Tomorrow morning, if that works for you. My office, 10 o'clock. "I'll be there." After hanging up, I continued unpacking, working methodically to transform the sterile condo into something that felt like mine. Around 7, the doorbell rang. I froze, instantly alert. No one knew I was here except James, the movers, and Michael, who was supposedly still overseas. Moving cautiously to the door, I checked the security monitor. Martha, my sister-in-law, stood in the hallway, her expression a mixture of concern and irritation. I hesitated, then buzzed her in. "Catherine, what on earth is going on?" she demanded the moment I opened the door. "Michael called me in a panic, saying you've sold the beach house and moved without telling anyone." "Hello to you too, Martha," I replied dryly. "Please come in." She swept past me, taking in the half-unpacked boxes and disarray. "So it's true. You've actually done it." "Yes." I closed the door firmly. "Would you like some tea? Or something stronger?" "I want an explanation." Martha and I had always had a complicated relationship. Robert's younger sister had never quite forgiven me for stealing her beloved brother, though we'd reached a truce over the decades. She loved Michael fiercely, considered him the son she never had. I decided it was time for a change, I said, moving to the kitchen to put the kettle on anyway. The beach house was becoming too much to maintain. Martha snorted inelegantly.
"Please."
"You've never complained about maintaining that house a day in your life. You adored the place. Try again." I measured tea leaves into the pot, buying time. Martha was shrewd, observant. Unlike Michael, she had never been charmed by Vanessa. "Why are you really here, Martha?" I asked finally. She sank onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "Because something isn't right. Michael sounds different. Fixated on money in a way he's never been before. He mentioned a nursing home, for God's sake, as if you're some doddering invalid." The kettle whistled. I poured water over the leaves, the familiar ritual calming my nerves. "What exactly did Michael tell you?" I asked. "That you've lost your mind. Sold the beach house without warning, moved into this ridiculously expensive condo, and refused to discuss where the money's gone." She leaned forward. Catherine, what's really happening? I set a cup of tea in front of her, then took a deep breath. If I tell you, you have to promise not to repeat it to Michael. Not yet. Martha's eyes narrowed. This involves Vanessa, doesn't it? I knew that girl was trouble the moment I met her. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. An ally. Someone who might believe me. At the wedding reception, I began slowly. I overheard Vanessa talking to one of her bridesmaids. She said, and I quote, "We'll put his mom in a nursing home and take that beach house." Martha's face drained of color. My God. She went on to discuss how they would sell it or tear it down. How she'd been manipulating Michael, making him think I'm becoming forgetful, unable to care for myself. The stove incident, Martha murmured. Michael mentioned something about you leaving burners on. Never happened, I confirmed grimly. Vanessa fabricated it to plant seeds of doubt about my competence. Martha set her teacup down with a sharp click. That conniving little bitch. Despite everything, I laughed. Martha had never been one to mince words.
Exactly.
So, I took action. I sold the house before she could manipulate Michael into taking it from me. I placed the proceeds in a trust that protects the assets during my lifetime and ensures they're distributed according to my wishes afterward. And the trust doesn't give everything to Michael, Martha guessed shrewdly. Not immediately, and not without conditions. She nodded slowly.
Good.
Robert would approve. After a pause, she added, "Have you told Michael what you overheard?" Would he believe me? I countered. Vanessa has spent months positioning me as mentally declining, jealous, resistant to their relationship. It would be my word against hers. So you're gathering evidence, Martha deduced, gesturing to my laptop open on the counter, where Thomas Drake's website was displayed. A private investigator? Catherine, you've been watching too many soap operas. I'm protecting myself, I corrected. And Michael, whether he realizes it or not. Martha sipped her tea thoughtfully. What do you know about her background? Her family seems legitimate enough. Old Boston money, from what Michael said. On the surface, yes. But there are gaps in her history. 3 broken engagements before Michael, all to wealthy men. I intend to find out what happened. 3? Martha's eyebrows rose. Michael only mentioned 1. Precisely. I leaned against the counter. What else isn't he aware of? Martha was silent for a long moment, processing. Then, how can I help? Relief flooded through me. You believe me, then? Of course I believe you. I've never trusted that girl. Too perfect, too calculated. And the way she looks at Michael, not like she loves him, but like she's won a prize. Martha straightened her shoulders. So, what's the plan? I meet with the investigator tomorrow. In the meantime, I need information. Anything you can tell me about Vanessa's background, her family, previous relationships. Martha smiled thinly. As it happens, I play bridge with Elaine Woodward. Her son Gregory was engaged to Vanessa briefly about 5 years ago. Was he indeed? This was exactly the kind of connection I needed. Do you think Elaine would speak with me? Better than that. There's a charity luncheon at the country club tomorrow. Elaine will be there. So will I, and now so will you. Martha, you're brilliant. I know. She rose, smoothing her slacks. But Catherine, be careful. If Vanessa is as manipulative as you believe, she won't take this lying down, especially once she realizes the beach house money is beyond her reach. I'm counting on it, I replied grimly. The more she reacts, the more she reveals. After Martha left, I finished unpacking the essentials and prepared for bed. The master bedroom felt strange, our familiar furniture in an unfamiliar space. I ran my hand over Robert's side of the bed, wishing desperately that he were here to advise me. My phone chimed with a text. Michael, landing tomorrow at 4 p.m. We need to talk. I replied simply, I'll be here. Sleep came fitfully, broken by dreams of the beach house crumbling into the sea, of Vanessa laughing as waves claimed my home. I woke at dawn, oddly energized despite the poor rest. Today, I would begin fighting back in earnest. Thomas Drake's office was located in a nondescript building downtown, the kind you could walk past 100 times without noticing. James Franklin met me in the lobby. "Catherine, good morning." He kissed my cheek warmly. "Are you ready for this?" "More than ready," I assured him. Drake was not what I expected. Instead of the hardened ex-FBI agent I'd imagined, he was a slight man with wire-rimmed glasses and thinning hair, dressed in a cardigan that had seen better days. But his eyes, sharp, assessing, missing nothing, told a different story. "Mrs. Mitchell," he greeted me, gesturing to a chair across from his cluttered desk. "James has briefed me on your situation. Quite a predicament." "That's one way of putting it," I agreed. "Before we proceed, I need to be clear about something." Drake leaned forward. "I don't take cases based on jealousy, paranoia, or vindictiveness. If you're simply trying to break up your son's marriage because you don't like his choice of bride, I'm not your man." "I understand," I said calmly. "And I assure you, this isn't about jealousy. It's about protection, mine and my son's." Drake studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, tell me everything from the beginning." For the next hour, I laid out the whole story: Vanessa's comments at the wedding, the history of manipulation, the stove incident, the threatening texts, everything. Drake took meticulous notes, occasionally interrupting with clarifying questions. "You mentioned 3 previous engagements," he said when I finished. "Do you have names?" "One for certain, Gregory Woodward. I'm attending a luncheon today, where his mother will be present. I hope to learn more." Drake made a note. "Good. Personal connections often yield details that official investigations miss." "What about her employment history?" "She claims to work in art acquisition for private collectors, but I've never seen evidence of actual clients or transactions." "Interesting." Drake tapped his pen against his notepad. "And her family? Harold and Diane Armstrong. Old Boston money, according to Michael. They have a townhouse in Beacon Hill and a summer place in Martha's Vineyard. Harold supposedly works in finance." "Supposedly?" I shrugged. "I've met them exactly twice, once when Michael announced the engagement, and again at the wedding. They're reserved. Diane drinks too much, Harold says little. They seem legitimate enough. But your instincts say otherwise," Drake finished for me. "Yes." He nodded thoughtfully. "Instincts matter in these situations, Mrs. Mitchell. Especially a mother's instincts about someone who's entered her child's life." Relief washed through me at being taken seriously. "So you'll take the case?" "I will." Drake closed his notebook. "My standard fee is $500 per day plus expenses. I require a $5,000 retainer to begin." James Franklin spoke up. "The trust will cover these expenses, Catherine. I've already authorized the funds." "Perfect." Drake stood, extending his hand. "I'll begin immediately. Background checks on Vanessa Armstrong Mitchell and her parents, investigation into the previous engagements, financial history, the works. I should have preliminary findings within a week." "Thank you," I said, shaking his hand firmly. "There's one more thing. Michael and Vanessa are returning from their honeymoon today. I expect a confrontation." Drake's expression turned serious. "Be careful. Document everything. Record conversations if legal in your state. Save all texts and emails. Note dates and times of any concerning behavior. If she threatens you in any way, call the police immediately." "I understand." "And Mrs. Mitchell?" He fixed me with a penetrating gaze. "Trust no one except those you're absolutely certain are on your side. People like this, if your suspicions are correct, are experts at turning allies against each other." His warning stayed with me as I prepared for the charity luncheon. I selected a St. John knit suit in deep navy, conservative, elegant, projecting confidence I didn't entirely feel. My new condo was walking distance from the country club, a small blessing given my scattered nerves. Martha met me at the entrance, resplendent in emerald green. "Ready for this?" "Elaine is already here, 3rd table from the left. I've arranged for us to sit with her." "Thank you," I murmured, surveying the room. The luncheon was well attended. The cream of local society gathered to support whatever cause was fashionable this month. Under normal circumstances, I would have found the event tedious. Today, it was a battlefield. Elaine Woodward was a formidable woman in her 60s, impeccably coiffed and jeweled. She greeted Martha warmly, then turned curious eyes on me. "Catherine Mitchell, I was so sorry to miss your son's wedding. European cruise couldn't be helped. How lovely to see you."
Likewise, Elaine.
I took the seat beside her. "And please call me Catherine." "Catherine, then." She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Martha tells me you've sold that gorgeous beach house. Such a shame. It was one of the finest properties on the coast." "Yes, well, times change." I accepted a glass of white wine from a passing server. Sometimes we must let go of the past to secure the future. "How philosophical," Elaine murmured. "And how is the new bride? Vanessa, isn't it?" The slight emphasis she placed on Vanessa's name told me everything. Martha had been right. Elaine Woodward had history with my daughter-in-law. Yes, Vanessa Armstrong, now Mitchell. They're just returning from their honeymoon today. The Maldives, I heard. Exquisite choice. Elaine sipped her wine. Vanessa always did have expensive taste. The opening I needed. "I believe you're acquainted with her? Through your son, Gregory?" A shadow crossed Elaine's carefully maintained facade. "Indeed. They were briefly engaged. Very briefly." Martha leaned in. "What exactly happened there, Elaine? If you don't mind my asking." Elaine glanced around, ensuring no one was listening too closely. "It's ancient history now, of course. Gregory met her at a gallery opening. Whirlwind romance, engaged within 2 months. She was charming, beautiful, seemed perfect in every way. But," I prompted gently. "But then Charles, my husband, insisted on a prenuptial agreement. Nothing unreasonable, just protecting family assets." Elaine's voice hardened. Vanessa was displeased. Claimed it showed a lack of trust. When Gregory wouldn't budge, things deteriorated rapidly. "She broke the engagement?" Martha asked.
No.
Elaine set her wine glass down with precision. "She began gaslighting him, hiding things, moving them, making him think he was losing his mind, then spreading rumors among our friends that he had mental health issues, all while presenting herself as the supportive, concerned fiancé." My blood ran cold. The same playbook she was using with me. "What happened?" I asked, though I could guess. "Gregory caught her in the act, literally saw her move his car keys, then watched her help him search for them while suggesting he might need memory supplements. When confronted, she turned vicious. Threatened to tell everyone he was abusive if he exposed her." "Did she?" Martha looked horrified.
No.
"Charles paid her off, a substantial parting gift, in exchange for her silence and a signed NDA." Elaine's mouth twisted bitterly. "Not my preference, but Gregory was devastated. He just wanted her gone. And now she's married to my son," I said quietly. Elaine reached across the table to grasp my hand. "I'm so sorry, Catherine. When I heard about the engagement, I wanted to warn you, but the NDA?" She trailed off helplessly. "I understand. And I did. Legal constraints aside, who would want to tell a mother her son was marrying a predator? But the NDA doesn't prevent you from answering direct questions now, does it?" A slow smile spread across Elaine's face. "No, it doesn't. What would you like to know?" For the next hour, over poached salmon and Chardonnay, Elaine Woodward told me everything about Vanessa's brief engagement to her son. The manipulations, the isolating tactics, the subtle digs designed to undermine Gregory's confidence. How she'd charmed their family friends while simultaneously turning Gregory against them. How she'd begun making casual references to his inheritance within weeks of their engagement. The beach house was a smart move, Elaine concluded. She can't take what isn't there anymore. But be careful, Catherine. When Vanessa realized she couldn't get Gregory's money, she became dangerous. Dangerous how? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Gregory's car was tampered with. Brake lines partially cut. Not enough to fail immediately, but enough to cause an accident eventually. Pure luck that our mechanic caught it during routine maintenance. Martha gasped softly. "You think she—" "We could never prove it," Elaine interrupted. "But the timing was suspicious. And there was a substantial life insurance policy that had me as beneficiary. She'd been pushing Gregory to change it to name her instead. My mind raced. Michael had a life insurance policy, standard through his employer, with me as beneficiary. Had Vanessa already convinced him to change it? Thank you for telling me this, I said to Elaine. I know it can't be easy to revisit. It isn't, she admitted. But I've regretted my silence for years. Perhaps if I'd spoken up sooner. She shook her head. Is there anything else I can do to help? Actually, yes. Do you know the names of Vanessa's other ex-fiancés? She was apparently engaged 3 times before Michael. Elaine raised an eyebrow. 3? I only knew of one other, Justin Mercer. Banking family from Chicago. Their engagement ended even more abruptly than Gregory's. Do you have any contact information for him? No, but Charles might. They belonged to the same club in Palm Beach for years. I'll ask him. As the luncheon concluded, Elaine pressed a card into my hand. My private number. Call anytime. And Catherine, her expression turned grave. Watch your back. Vanessa doesn't lose gracefully. Martha and I walked back to my condo in silence, both processing Elaine's revelations. At the entrance, Martha turned to me. You need to tell Michael, she said firmly. He won't believe me. I reminded her. Not without proof. Then get proof. Record her somehow. Trick her into revealing herself. I shook my head. That's too risky. If she realizes what I'm doing. What choice do you have? Martha demanded. Wait for Drake's investigation while she continues poisoning Michael against you? You heard Elaine. Vanessa gets dangerous when cornered. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Just landed. Coming to your place. Be there in 45 minutes. I showed Martha the message. Decision time. She squeezed my arm. Be careful. Call me after they leave. I will. Upstairs, I moved quickly, straightening the still disorganized condo. Not out of any desire to impress Vanessa, but to project stability, competence. Nothing she could point to as evidence of mental decline. I was arranging framed photos on the mantel when the concierge called. Mrs. Mitchell, your son and his wife are here. Shall I send them up? Yes, please. Thank you, Edward. I took a deep breath, smoothed my suit, and prepared for battle. When the doorbell rang minutes later, I opened it with a carefully neutral expression. Michael looked exhausted, his face drawn with jet lag and tension. Vanessa, by contrast, appeared immaculate, not a hair out of place, designer sunglasses perched on her head, expression a perfect mask of concern. Mom. Michael stepped forward to embrace me stiffly. You look well. Thank you. I accepted the awkward hug, then stepped back. Please come in. Vanessa followed, her eyes darting around the condo, assessing. What a lovely place, she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. So modern. Perfect for someone in your situation. My situation being what, exactly? I asked pleasantly. Well, you know, she gestured vaguely. Living alone at your age. This building has excellent security, I hear. It does indeed. I smiled thinly. Would either of you like something to drink? You must be tired after your flight. Just water, Michael said, sinking onto the sofa. Mom, we need to talk about what's happened. Of course. I moved to the kitchen, retrieving bottled water from the refrigerator. I imagine you have questions. Questions? Michael's voice rose. You sold our family home without warning. Of course I have questions. I returned with the water, handing it to him calmly. My home, Michael. The beach house was mine alone. Dad would have wanted. Your father, I interrupted gently, wanted me to be secure and happy. This move accomplishes both. Vanessa perched on the arm of the sofa beside Michael, her hand on his shoulder in a show of support. We're just concerned about the suddenness of it all, Catherine. Such a major decision, made so impulsively. There was nothing impulsive about it, I countered. I've been considering a move for some time. Without mentioning it to anyone? Michael shook his head in disbelief. Mom, that's not like you. You've always talked through big decisions with me. Perhaps it's time I made decisions independently. I sat in the armchair across from them. I'm not getting any younger, as Vanessa so tactfully implied. I needed to think about my future. Which is exactly what we wanted to discuss with you. Vanessa interjected smoothly. Your future care. We were thinking. Serenity Shores? I suggested innocently. She blinked, momentarily thrown.
What?
Isn't that the facility you had in mind? Nice enough that Michael wouldn't feel guilty, but far enough away that you wouldn't have to visit more than once a month. The color drained from Vanessa's face. Michael looked between us, confused. Mom, what are you talking about? We've never discussed specific facilities. Haven't you? I held Vanessa's gaze steadily. Perhaps I'm mistaken. Senior moment, I suppose. Vanessa recovered quickly. You see, Michael? These memory lapses are exactly what worry me. First the stove incident, now this. The alleged stove incident, I corrected, for which there is no evidence beyond your word. Michael's confusion deepened. Mom, what's going on? Why are you being hostile? I'm not being hostile, Michael. I'm being direct. I leaned forward. The truth is, I sold the beach house to protect myself. My words hung in the air like storm clouds, dark and heavy, with potential devastation. Michael stared at me, bewilderment etched across his face, while Vanessa's eyes narrowed to calculating slits. In that moment, I realized something fundamental about power. Those who wield it silently are the most dangerous of all. If you're still following my story, subscribe now and drop a broken heart in the comments if you've ever had to choose between painful honesty and comfortable lies. The choice I made that day would change everything. Protect yourself? Michael echoed, confusion deepening the lines on his forehead. From what? I took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth, literally. I could retreat, make up some vague explanation about finances or maintenance issues. Or I could confront the serpent coiled beside my son on the sofa. Vanessa's eyes flashed a warning, her perfectly manicured hand tightening on Michael's shoulder. But something had shifted in me since selling the beach house. Fear had crystallized into resolve. From having my assets taken from me against my will, I said calmly. From being placed in a facility to get me out of the way. Michael's expression morphed from confusion to concern. Mom, no one's trying to take anything from you, or put you anywhere. We've been worried about you living alone, that's all. Have we? I asked, looking directly at Vanessa. Or has someone been planting that concern in your mind? Creating incidents, suggesting mental decline where none exists. Catherine, Vanessa's voice dripped with false concern. I understand this is difficult. Change always is, especially at your age. But these paranoid accusations, they only prove our point about your state of mind. She was good, I had to give her that. Turning my accusations back on me, using them as evidence of exactly what she'd been suggesting to Michael all along, that I was becoming unstable, irrational, perhaps even delusional. Michael, I said, ignoring her completely. At your wedding reception, I overheard a conversation between Vanessa and her bridesmaid Melissa. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was getting air in the garden when they came around the corner. Michael shifted uncomfortably. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying that your wife told her friend, and I quote, "We'll put his mom in a nursing home and take that beach house." She went on to discuss how she'd been manipulating you, making you believe I'm becoming forgetful. The stove incident she claimed to witness never happened. The blood drained from Michael's face. He turned to Vanessa, whose expression had hardened, the mask of concern slipping. That's absurd, she said flatly. I never said any such thing. You also mentioned Serenity Shores specifically. I continued. A facility far enough away that you wouldn't have to visit more than monthly. You discussed how you'd already been planting seeds about my supposed forgetfulness. Michael, Vanessa's voice took on a desperate edge. She's making this up. She's been hostile toward me from the beginning. You've seen it yourself. Now she's inventing conversations to turn you against me. Michael looked shell-shocked, his gaze ping-ponging between us. Mom, that's a serious accusation. Yes, it is, I agreed. Just as serious as claiming I'm mentally declining when I'm not. There was the stove. There was no stove incident, I interrupted firmly. Vanessa claimed she found a burner left on when she visited, but I know for a fact I hadn't used the stove that day. I'd been at Martha's, remember? We had lunch together. A flicker of doubt crossed Michael's face. He did remember he'd called me at Martha's that afternoon. Vanessa sensed the shift. One incident doesn't prove anything, she countered. But selling a multi-million-dollar property without telling your only child? Moving suddenly? These are concerning behaviors, Michael. They're protective behaviors, I corrected. Actions taken by someone who discovered a plot against them. Michael stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The city spread below, people going about their ordinary lives while ours imploded in this sleek, half-unpacked condo. This is insane, he muttered. My wife and my mother accusing each other of what? Conspiracy? Gaslighting? Mental manipulation? I understand how it sounds, I said softly. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't heard it with my own ears. Which is exactly why she invented this conversation, Vanessa interjected. It's her word against mine, with no witnesses, no proof.
She was right about that.
It was precisely why I'd moved so quickly to sell the beach house. I knew no one would believe me without evidence. Michael, I tried again. Why do you think I sold the house? After all these years, all the memories there, why would I suddenly decide to give that up unless I felt truly threatened? He turned back from the window, his expression pained. I don't know, Mom. That's what scares me. You're not acting like yourself. Or perhaps you're finally seeing a side of me you haven't needed before, I suggested. The side that survived losing your father. The side that protected our family when things got difficult. By hiding assets from me, bitterness crept into his voice. By putting my inheritance into some secret trust? How did you know about the trust? I asked sharply. A moment of panic flashed across Vanessa's face. Michael hesitated. James Franklin called to confirm some details. Left a message at our hotel.
A lie.
James would never have called Michael about the trust. Which meant Vanessa had been digging, calling around, pressuring contacts, using Michael's name to extract information. James would not have contacted you about my private financial arrangements, I said slowly. So either you're lying to me, or someone has been impersonating you to gain confidential information. Michael flushed. I might have called his office to ask some questions. At whose suggestion? I pressed, though I already knew the answer. His silence was confirmation enough. Vanessa had been pushing him, using his confusion and hurt to justify invading my privacy. The trust, I explained calmly, ensures that my assets remain under my control during my lifetime. After my death, provisions are made for you, but with conditions that protect the money from being squandered or misused. Conditions? Michael's voice rose. What right do you have to place conditions on what should rightfully come to me? Every right, I replied evenly. It's my money, earned through decades of work alongside your father. And the conditions are simple. You receive your inheritance when you're 50 after completing a financial management course. 50. He looked stunned. That's 20 years from now, by which time you'll have built your own successful life and career, I pointed out. The inheritance should be a bonus, not a lifeline. Vanessa had remained unnaturally still during this exchange, her calculating mind visibly working behind those cold eyes. Now she stood, smoothing her designer slacks with practiced nonchalance. I think we all need time to calm down, she said reasonably. Catherine, you've clearly been under a lot of stress with the move. Michael and I should go, give you space to settle in. We can discuss this when everyone's thinking more clearly. A strategic retreat. She needed time to regroup, to spin this conversation in her favor, to further convince Michael that my behavior proved her claims about my mental state. Before you go, I said, retrieving my phone from the coffee table, I'd like to clarify something. Vanessa, is this your phone number? I displayed the screen showing the unknown number that had sent the threatening texts. Her expression flickered. I don't know what you're showing me. This number sent me several threatening messages after I sold the beach house, including, you think you're clever, but you haven't seen what I'll do next. Michael looked at the screen, then at Vanessa. That's not Vanessa's number. No, I agreed. It's a burner phone. But the interesting thing about modern technology is that messages can be traced, even from disposable phones. A complete bluff. I had no way to trace the messages yet, though Thomas Drake had mentioned it might be possible. But Vanessa didn't know that. Her composure slipped just enough, a tightening around the eyes, a slight flare of the nostrils, to confirm my suspicion. "Are you having me investigated?" she demanded, abandoning the concerned daughter-in-law act entirely. "Should I be?" I countered. Michael looked between us, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. "Stop it, both of you. This is getting us nowhere." Vanessa immediately softened, placing a hand on his arm. "You're right, darling. Catherine is clearly determined to see me as an enemy. Nothing I say will change that." "Don't touch me," Michael said quietly, stepping away from her. "I need to think." The rejection, however minor, visibly rattled her. Vanessa was losing control of the situation and of Michael. Her eyes darkened dangerously.
Fine, she snapped.
"Think all you want. But while you're thinking, remember who stood by you all these years while your mother controlled everything. The money, the beach house, your relationship with your father's memory. Ask yourself why she's never approved of any woman you've dated. Ask yourself why she'd rather destroy your inheritance than let you have control of it." "That's not what I've done," I protested. "Isn't it?" Vanessa's voice rose. "You sold a property worth millions without consulting him. You've hidden the money in a trust he can't access for decades. You're painting me as some kind of gold digger to drive a wedge between us. Classic manipulative behavior from someone who can't bear to lose their grip on their adult child." The accusations were breathtaking in their audacity and their irony. She was describing exactly her own tactics while attributing them to me. "Michael," I said quietly, "I have never tried to control your life. I've supported your choices, your career, your independence. What I won't support is watching you be manipulated by someone who sees you as a meal ticket." "A meal ticket?" Vanessa laughed incredulously. "I come from money, Catherine. My family has more wealth than yours ever did. I don't need Michael's inheritance." An interesting claim, and one Thomas Drake would be investigating thoroughly. "Then why the fixation on the beach house?" I asked. "Why the discussion about putting me in a nursing home to take it?" "A conversation that never happened," Vanessa nearly shouted. "Michael, she's invented this whole scenario to justify stealing your inheritance." "It's not stolen," I countered. "It's protected. And you didn't answer my question. If you're so wealthy, why does my beach house matter to you?" "Because it was supposed to be our future." Vanessa's control slipped further. "A legacy for our children, Michael's birthright." "Children you don't have yet," I noted. "A birthright that wouldn't have been relevant for decades, unless, of course, you were planning to get me out of the way sooner." Michael had been watching this exchange with growing horror. Now he raised his hands. "Enough. Both of you, just enough." He looked exhausted, the jet lag and emotional whiplash taking their toll. For a moment, I saw my little boy again, the child who'd cry when Robert and I argued, who hated conflict of any kind. "I can't process this right now," he said wearily. "Mom, I don't know what to believe. Either you're having some kind of episode or Vanessa is." He couldn't finish the thought. "I understand," I said gently. "This is a lot to take in." Vanessa seized the opening. "Michael, let's go home. You need rest. We can sort this out later." He nodded numbly.
Yeah,
we should go." My heart ached at the defeat in his voice. I'd hoped for what? An immediate recognition of the truth? A dramatic rejection of Vanessa on the spot? Life wasn't a television drama. Real deception unraveled slowly, painfully. "Before you go," I said, retrieving an envelope from the side table, "I want you to have this." "What is it?" Michael asked warily. "A copy of the trust document. So you can see for yourself what I've actually done, not what Vanessa is claiming I've done." He took the envelope reluctantly. "Fine. And Michael?" I caught his gaze. "I love you. That hasn't changed and never will, regardless of what happens next. For a brief moment, his expression softened. I know, Mom. I need time. After they left, I sank onto the sofa, emotionally drained. The confrontation had gone both better and worse than I'd expected. I hadn't convinced Michael, but I'd planted seeds of doubt. And Vanessa had revealed more of her true nature than she probably intended.
My phone rang.
Martha. Well, she demanded without preamble. How did it go? About as well as could be expected. I sighed. Michael's confused, hurt. Vanessa's doing damage control. Did you tell him what you overheard?
Yes.
She denied it, of course. Turned it around, suggested I'm having paranoid delusions. Martha snorted. Convenient. What now? Now we wait for Thomas Drake's investigation. And I meet with anyone who might have information about Vanessa's past. Elaine Woodward is getting me contact details for another ex-fiancé. Good. Martha paused. Catherine, be careful. If she's as dangerous as Elaine suggested, I know. I've changed all my locks, and this building has excellent security. After hanging up, I checked my email. A message from Drake had arrived during the confrontation with Michael and Vanessa. Preliminary findings attached. Call me when you've reviewed. I opened the attachment, scanning the document quickly. Drake had been busy. The report detailed Vanessa's background, at least the official version. Boston private schools, 2 years at Boston University before dropping out, sporadic employment at various galleries and art consultancies. Parents Harold and Diane Armstrong, residing at the Beacon Hill address I knew. But there were discrepancies. Harold Armstrong's finance career was vaguely defined. The family's wealth, while evident in their lifestyle, was difficult to trace to specific sources. And most interestingly, Vanessa had legally changed her name at 18 from Vanessa Caras to Vanessa Armstrong. I dialed Drake's number. You saw the report, he said when he answered.
Yes.
The name change is interesting.
Very.
I'm digging into the Caras family now. Greek immigrants, settled in Boston in the 1970s. Modest means, certainly not the old money she claims. So she reinvented herself, I mused. Took her mother's maiden name, perhaps? That's my guess. The timing coincides with her entry into Boston's social scene. Suddenly, she's Vanessa Armstrong, distant relation to the Philadelphia Armstrongs, a connection I've found no evidence actually exists. What about her parents? Are they really her parents? Biologically, yes, I believe so. But they're playing roles too. Harold Caras was a restaurant owner, not a financier. The business failed in the late 90s. Diane worked as a real estate agent, moderately successful, but nowhere near the wealth they display now. So, where's the money coming from? I wondered aloud. That, Drake said grimly, is the million-dollar question. I'm following several leads. But Mrs. Mitchell, I need to warn you, whatever they're involved in, it's not entirely legal. These people have gone to great lengths to hide their true identities and financial sources. A chill ran through me. What had Michael gotten himself into? What about the previous engagements? I asked. Gregory Woodward checks out exactly, as his mother described. I'm still tracking down information on Justin Mercer and the third fiancé, a Peter Holloway, from what I can gather. All wealthy men. All brief engagements that ended badly. And no legal repercussions for Vanessa? None that I can find. Each case was quietly settled, presumably with NDAs involved. Rich families protecting their reputations. I thanked Drake for his work and promised to call if I learned anything new from Elaine Woodward's contacts. After hanging up, I sat at Robert's desk, processing what I'd learned. Vanessa wasn't who she claimed to be. Neither were her parents. The question was, did Michael know? Had he been deceived along with everyone else, or was he somehow complicit? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, different from the previous ones. We need to talk. Alone. About Vanessa. Meet me at Riverside Park, North Entrance, 7 p.m. Justin Mercer. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Justin Mercer, Vanessa's second ex-fiancé, had contacted me out of nowhere. How had he gotten my number? How did he even know who I was or what was happening? It could be a trap. Vanessa might have set this up to lure me somewhere isolated. But if it was genuine, I texted Martha immediately. Got message from Justin Mercer wanting to meet tonight at Riverside Park. Seems suspicious. Thoughts? Her reply came quickly. Don't go alone. I'll come with you. We'll bring Charles too. Safety in numbers. Charles was Martha's current boyfriend, a retired police detective. His presence would certainly provide additional security. Still, caution seemed warranted. I replied, tell him to meet at the coffee shop across from the park instead. Public place. 7:30 p.m. Then I forwarded the original text to Drake, asking him to verify if the number actually belonged to Justin Mercer. Better to cover all bases. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of unpacking and planning. By 6 o'clock, Drake had confirmed the number did indeed appear to belong to Mercer, though he cautioned that phone numbers could be spoofed. I dressed carefully for the meeting, casual but elegant, nothing that would attract attention. Before leaving, I activated the security system in my new condo and double-checked that the doorman knew not to allow Vanessa upstairs under any circumstances. Martha and Charles were already at the coffee shop when I arrived, seated at a corner table with clear views of both entrances. Charles stood as I approached, a burly man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair and watchful eyes. Catherine, he greeted me warmly. Martha's told me what's happening. Concerning situation you've got there. That's putting it mildly, I agreed, taking a seat. Thank you both for coming. As if we'd let you face this alone, Martha scoffed. Besides, I'm dying to hear what this Mercer person has to say. We ordered coffee and waited. At exactly 7:30, a man entered the shop, glancing around nervously. Tall, slim, expensively dressed, with the haunted look of someone who hasn't slept properly in days. When his gaze fell on our table, recognition flickered in his eyes. Mrs. Mitchell, he approached cautiously.
I'm Dustin Mercer.
Charles stood slightly, a subtle but clear display of protective presence. Have a seat, Mr. Mercer. I'm Charles Dunning, a friend of the family. Mercer sat, his movements jittery. Up close, I could see the toll stress had taken, skin pale, eyes shadowed, a slight tremor in his hands. Thank you for agreeing to meet, he said, voice low. Though I'd hoped to speak with you alone. I don't meet strange men alone, I replied. Especially ones who text me out of the blue about my daughter-in-law. He flinched at the mention of Vanessa. Fair enough. I understand the caution. In your position, I'd do the same. How did you get my number? I asked. Elaine Woodward. He glanced around nervously. She reached out after speaking with you at some luncheon. Said you were investigating Vanessa, that your son had married her. I felt obligated to warn you. Warn me about what, exactly? Mercer rubbed his face wearily. Where to begin? Vanessa Armstrong, or Kara as she was born, is not just a gold digger. She's dangerous. Criminally so. We've heard rumors to that effect, Martha interjected. Gregory Woodward's car brakes. That was just a start, Mercer said grimly. With me, it was food poisoning.
Twice.
The second time put me in the hospital. Doctors found traces of something that shouldn't have been there, something that doesn't occur naturally in food. A chill ran through me. You think she tried to kill you? I know she did. His voice hardened. The pattern was always the same.
Charme, vir vir romance, engagement.
Then when financial discussions began, prenuptial agreements, inheritance questions, things would turn. Small incidents at first. Misplaced items, forgotten conversations I was sure we'd had. Then physical symptoms, headaches, dizziness, memory lapses. Gaslighting, followed by actual poisoning, Charles murmured. Escalating tactics. Exactly, Mercer nodded. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already being treated like I was mentally unstable. My own family started watching me with concern. Vanessa had convinced everyone I was having some kind of breakdown. What stopped her? I asked. Why didn't she succeed? My sister, Mercer said simply. She never trusted Vanessa. Set up a nanny cam in my apartment without telling me. caught Vanessa tampering with my food, my medication. When confronted with the evidence, Vanessa threatened to destroy us publicly unless we paid her off. And you did, Martha guessed. My family did, he corrected bitterly. $500,000 and an NDA. Cheaper and less messy than a scandal, they said. I was still recovering in the hospital when they made the deal. Did you go to the police? Charles asked, professional instincts engaged. Mercer laughed humorlessly. With what? By the time I was well enough to think clearly, the evidence had conveniently disappeared. The video, the tainted food samples, all gone.
My father made sure of that.
Clean break, he called it. And now she's married to my son, I said quietly. Mercer's expression turned grave. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm not here just to reminisce about my narrow escape. I'm here because 2 days ago, Vanessa contacted me. My blood ran cold. What did she want? Information about you. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text. Need dirt on Catherine Mitchell. Will pay well.
Urgent.
Did you respond? Charles asked sharply. Not yet. I wanted to meet you first. See what's happening. Mercer leaned forward. Look, I know how this sounds. 3 ex-fiancés, all claiming the same woman tried to harm them? It seems far-fetched. But we all experienced it. Peter Holloway ended up committed briefly to a psychiatric facility before his family figured out what was happening. Peter Holloway, I repeated. Drake mentioned him as the 3rd fiancé.
Yes.
He's in Europe now, keeps a very low profile. But I can put you in touch if you think it would help. It might, I acknowledged. The more evidence we gather, the better chance I have of convincing my son before it's too late. Mercer studied me for a moment. You really love him, don't you? This isn't about money or control for you. Of course I love him, I said, surprised by the question. He's my son. You'd be amazed how many parents I've met who claim love while acting out of self-interest, he replied. Vanessa has a gift for finding families with money, but without genuine connections. It makes her job easier. Her job. Martha raised an eyebrow. That's what it is to her.
A job.
Mercer's expression darkened. She identifies targets, researches them thoroughly, then executes a plan. Always the same goal, maximum financial gain, minimum legal exposure. And her parents? I asked, thinking of Drake's findings. Are they involved? Completely. They're a team. Harold and Diane play the respectable older couple, lending credibility to Vanessa's persona. They've been running variations of this scheme for years. Across state lines, Charles noted. That makes it federal. If you could prove it, Mercer agreed. But they're careful. Very careful. We talked for another hour, Mercer sharing details of his experience with Vanessa. The manipulation tactics, the isolation from friends and family, the carefully orchestrated incidents that made him appear unstable. All of it painfully familiar. The same playbook she was using with Michael and me. As we prepared to leave, Mercer pressed a thumb drive into my hand. Security footage from my apartment building. Shows Vanessa entering at odd hours when she claimed to be elsewhere. It's not proof of poisoning, but it establishes a pattern of deception. I kept a copy despite the NDA. Thank you, I said, genuinely moved by his willingness to help a stranger. Why are you doing this? You could be violating your legal agreement. Because I wish someone had warned me, he said simply. And because after what she did, I spent 2 years rebuilding my life, my confidence, my trust in my own mind. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Charles insisted on escorting me home, checking my condo thoroughly before leaving. Security system's good, he approved. But I'd feel better if you added a chain lock. And don't open the door without checking who it is first. I won't, I promised. Alone again, I connected Mercer's thumb drive to my laptop. The footage was exactly as he'd described. Vanessa entering his building at times that contradicted her alibis. Not smoking gun evidence of attempted murder, but certainly proof of calculated deception. I forwarded the files to Drake, along with notes from our conversation with Mercer. Then I sat at Robert's desk, pulling out his journal again. There was a passage I remembered, something that seemed relevant now. April 18th. Vanessa asked detailed questions about our family trust today. Michael wasn't even in the room. She wanted to know who controls it, how assets are distributed, whether the beach house is included. Too knowledgeable about estate law for casual curiosity. Something feels wrong. Robert had sensed it. Even in his weakened state, fighting the cancer that would take him months later, he'd recognized the predator circling our family.
My phone rang.
Michael.
Mom.
His voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Of course, I said carefully. What's on your mind? I've been reading the trust documents you gave me. There's something I don't understand. My pulse quickened. What's that? It says if I contest the terms, I forfeit everything. The entire inheritance goes to the Oceanside Conservation Trust. Why would you include that? Because I knew Vanessa would push you to fight it, I thought. Because I needed to ensure the money couldn't be taken through legal channels. It's standard language in many trusts, I said instead. Discourages frivolous challenges. It feels like you don't trust me, he said quietly. It's not about trust, Michael. It's about protection. Sometimes the people closest to us can be influenced by others who don't have our best interests at heart. You mean Vanessa? Not a question. Yes. He was silent for a long moment. Then, I found something in her desk today. A burner phone. My breath caught. The one used to send me those texts. I don't know. Maybe. He sounded exhausted. She said it was for a surprise she was planning for me. A special honeymoon gift. But you're having doubts. I finished gently. I don't know what to think anymore. The woman you described at our meeting, that cold, calculating person, that's not the Vanessa I know. But then I find this phone, and when I asked about it, she got defensive. And now these trust documents with clauses that seem designed specifically to prevent her from accessing the money. Michael, I said carefully, I know this is incredibly difficult, but I need you to consider something. The Vanessa you know, is it possible that's a persona? A carefully crafted image designed to win you over? He struggled for words. That's a horrible thing to consider. I know, but necessary. I love her, Mom. My heart broke for him. I know you do. That's what makes this so painful. What should I do? He asked, sounding suddenly young and lost. Come to my condo tomorrow. Alone. I have information you need to see. What kind of information? Evidence, I said simply. About Vanessa's past. Things you need to know before you decide who to believe. After a long pause, he agreed. Tomorrow morning.
10 o'clock.
Thank you, I said, relief washing through me. And Michael? Be careful what you say to Vanessa tonight. You think she's dangerous, he said flatly. I think she's desperate. The beach house is gone. The money is secured. Her plans are unraveling. That makes her unpredictable. After we hung up, I emailed Drake again, updating him on the development with Michael and requesting any additional information he could provide before our meeting tomorrow. Then I contacted James Franklin, asking him to join us. Michael trusted James, had known him his entire life. His presence would lend credibility to what we needed to share. I was preparing for bed when a text arrived from another unknown number. You should check on your son.
Right now.
My blood ran cold. I tried calling Michael immediately, no answer. Then Vanessa's phone, straight to voicemail. Panic rising, I called Charles. I need to check on Michael, I said without preamble. I just got a threatening text suggesting he might be in danger. Charles didn't waste time with questions. Text me the address. I'll meet you there. I threw on clothes, grabbed my purse, and raced downstairs. The doorman called a taxi, which arrived in minutes. As we sped through the nighttime streets, I tried Michael's number repeatedly. No response. Charles was waiting outside Michael and Vanessa's downtown apartment building when I arrived. No response to the buzzer, he reported grimly. I've called for a wellness check. Police should be here in minutes. True to his word, a patrol car pulled up moments later. Charles explained the situation, showing his retired detective credentials. The officers agreed to accompany us upstairs. The building manager reluctantly provided access to the apartment after the police explained their concern. As we approached the door, I noticed something that made my stomach lurch, a faint chemical smell seeping into the hallway. Gas. Charles identified it immediately. Don't use the buzzer. It could spark. One of the officers radioed for backup and fire department support, then pounded on the door. Police. Anyone inside? No response. We need to get in there now, Charles insisted. The manager fumbled with his master key. As soon as the door cracked open, the gas smell intensified. The officers pushed past us, ordering everyone else to stay back. Minutes that felt like hours passed. Finally, one officer emerged, supporting a stumbling, disoriented Michael. Found him unconscious in the bedroom, the officer reported. Gas was coming from the kitchen, stove burners on, no flame. Windows sealed shut. Another few minutes. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Vanessa? I asked, rushing to Michael's side. Not in the apartment, the officer replied. We're searching now. Michael's eyes fluttered open as paramedics arrived. Mom? What happening? You're safe, I assured him, squeezing his hand as the paramedics began examining him. Gas leak in your apartment. The police got you out in time. Gas, he mumbled, confusion clouding his features. But I checked before bed, turned everything off. A chill ran down my spine. You specifically checked the stove before going to bed. He nodded weakly. Always do, safety first. I exchanged glances with Charles, whose grim expression mirrored my thoughts. This was no accident. Someone had turned on the gas after Michael went to bed, then left him to die. Where's Vanessa? Michael asked suddenly, trying to sit up. Is she okay? The paramedic gently restrained him. Sir, you need to lie still. Carbon monoxide levels in your blood are concerning. We need to get you to the hospital. Not without Vanessa, he insisted, struggling against their hands. She must still be inside. The police have searched the entire apartment, Charles said firmly. She's not there, Michael. Confusion gave way to panic. Then where is she? She was right beside me when I fell asleep. As if in answer, my phone chimed with a text. The same unknown number as before. Check your email. With trembling fingers, I opened my email app. A new message had arrived minutes ago. Sender unknown. Subject line. Your son for your silence. I opened it to find a video attachment. When I played it, Vanessa's face filled the screen. Hello, Catherine. Vanessa's voice slithered through my phone speaker, her face a mask of cold fury. By now you've discovered my little insurance policy. A shame it didn't work as planned, but no matter. We're beyond subtlety now, aren't we? As paramedics rushed my son to the hospital, I stood in that hallway reeking of gas and betrayal, watching the woman who had tried to murder him threaten me with unblinking eyes. In that moment, I understood that some monsters wear designer clothes and wedding rings, and the most dangerous predators are those who know exactly how much you have to lose. If you're still watching this nightmare unfold, subscribe now and comment with a fire if you've ever discovered someone was willing to burn everything down rather than lose control. What I did next would change all our lives forever. The video continued, Vanessa's perfectly made-up face betraying no remorse for what she'd attempted. I know you've been digging into my past, she continued, voice eerily calm. Contacting my former fiancés, hiring investigators. Very thorough. My compliments. But it ends now. She adjusted the camera, revealing she was in what appeared to be a hotel room. Here's what happens next. You will call off your investigators. You will transfer the beach house proceeds to an account I'll specify. You will tell Michael that you've been suffering mental health issues, that you imagined our conversation at the wedding, that you're seeking treatment. In exchange, I won't release certain materials I've collected about your late husband's business dealings. My blood ran cold. Robert had been meticulously ethical in his work. What could she possibly have? Don't look so shocked, Vanessa smirked, as if she could see my reaction. Everyone has secrets, Catherine. Even saintly Robert. Did you know about the payments to that woman in Tampa? The offshore account? No. Pity. She was bluffing. She had to be. But how could she know about Tampa? Robert had been involved in a development project there years ago, a project that had ended badly when his partner embezzled funds. Robert had spent months making investors whole out of our personal savings. There had been no impropriety on his part. You have 24 hours to comply, Vanessa concluded. Otherwise, Michael receives everything I've collected about his father, along with police departments in 3 states. Your choice, Catherine. Your reputation or your son's inheritance. The clock is ticking. The video ended. I stared at the blank screen, mind racing. Charles placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. We should get to the hospital, he said quietly. Michael needs you. She tried to kill him, I whispered, still processing the horror of it. Her own husband. And now she's trying to blackmail you, Charles added grimly. We need to take this to the police. I nodded numbly. The police officers were already securing the apartment as a crime scene, photographing the open gas valves, the sealed windows. One approached us, notebook in hand. Mrs. Mitchell? We'll need statements from both of you. And we're putting out an APB for Vanessa Mitchell. I have evidence you'll want to see, I told him, holding up my phone. A video she just sent, essentially confessing. The officer's eyebrows rose. That would be extremely helpful. We'll need to take your phone as evidence. After I've backed up the file, I insisted. And after I've seen my son at the hospital. He agreed reluctantly, escorting us downstairs. Charles drove me to the hospital in silence, both of us processing the night's events. In the emergency room, a doctor met us with an update. Mr. Mitchell is stable, she assured us. We're administering oxygen to clear the carbon monoxide from his system. He's conscious and asking for you. Relief washed through me. Can I see him? Briefly. He needs rest. Michael lay on a hospital bed, an oxygen mask covering his face, monitoring equipment beeping steadily beside him. When he saw me, he pulled the mask aside. Mom, his voice was raspy. Vanessa? They're looking for her, I said gently, taking his hand. Michael, I'm so sorry. Confusion clouded his eyes. What happened? I don't understand. How could I tell him? That his wife of barely 2 weeks had tried to murder him? That everything I'd warned him about had proven horrifically true? The police are investigating, I said instead. The gas was turned on after you went to bed. An accident, he mumbled, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. No, honey. Not an accident. Realization dawned slowly on his face, followed by a pain so profound it took my breath away. Vanessa did this?
But why? I don't.
Sure. I smoothed his hair back from his forehead, just as I had when he was small. We'll figure everything out. Right now, you need to rest and recover. A tear slid from the corner of his eye. You were right about her. All along. I wish I hadn't been, I said truthfully. I would give anything for this not to be happening. He closed his eyes, grief etching lines on his young face. The beach house. You sold it because you knew. You were protecting yourself from her. From both of you at the time, I admitted. I didn't know who to trust. He nodded slightly, then winced at the movement. I'm so sorry, Mom. The things I said to you. Don't worry about that now. Just focus on getting better. A nurse entered, gently but firmly indicating that visit time was over. I kissed Michael's forehead, promised to return in the morning, and left him to the care of medical professionals. In the hallway, Charles was speaking with 2 police detectives who had arrived to take our statements. I showed them Vanessa's video, which they downloaded as evidence. Then I recounted everything, the overheard conversation at the wedding, the threatening texts, the information from Justin Mercer and Elaine Woodward, Thomas Drake's preliminary findings. This is quite a story, Mrs. Mitchell, one detective said when I finished. If even half of it checks out, your daughter-in-law is looking at attempted murder charges at minimum. Plus extortion, identity fraud, and possibly conspiracy, his partner added. We'll need contact information for this private investigator and the ex-fiancés you mentioned. I provided everything they asked for, including Drake's contact details and the thumb drive from Justin Mercer. By the time we finished, dawn was breaking, pale light filtering through the hospital windows. You should get some rest, Charles suggested as the detectives departed. I'll drive you home. I can't rest, I said, exhaustion warring with adrenaline. Not while she's out there. Not while Michael is in danger. The hospital has security, and the police are searching for her. There's nothing more you can do right now. He was right logically, but maternal instinct doesn't operate on logic. Still, I allowed him to drive me back to my condo, where Martha was waiting, having been updated by Charles via text. "Oh, Catherine," she enveloped me in a fierce hug. "Thank God you got that warning text." "Who sent it?" "I don't know," I admitted, sinking onto the sofa. "Unknown number." "Someone who knew what Vanessa was planning," Charles noted. "Someone on the inside." "Her parents, maybe?" Martha suggested. "A falling out among thieves." I shook my head. They've worked together too long. Besides, why warn me anonymously instead of stopping her directly? "Good point," Charles conceded. "Another possibility is someone from her past. One of the ex-fiancés keeping tabs on her, perhaps. Or," I sat up straighter as a thought struck me. "Melissa, the bridesmaid who was with her in the garden when I overheard them plotting. The accomplice?" Martha frowned. "Or someone who got in over her head." I countered. "Maybe she was fine with Vanessa putting me in a nursing home, but drew the line at murder." Charles nodded thoughtfully. "Worth looking into. I'll mention it to the detectives." Despite my protests that I couldn't possibly sleep, exhaustion eventually won out. I drifted off on the sofa, waking hours later to the sound of my phone ringing. Thomas Drake. "Mrs. Mitchell," he sounded urgent. "I've uncovered something you need to see immediately. Can you come to my office?" "What is it?" I asked, instantly alert. "Not over the phone. But it concerns your husband's time in Tampa, and a woman named Elena Vasquez." My breath caught. Elena had been Robert's partner's assistant, the woman who had eventually exposed the embezzlement at great personal risk. Robert had helped her relocate afterward, ensuring she was protected from her former boss's retribution. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I promised." Martha insisted on accompanying me, while Charles went to the hospital to check on Michael. Drake's office was as cluttered as before, but there was a new energy to the man as he ushered us inside. "The police contacted me about Vanessa's attempted murder of your son," he said without preamble. "Horrific business. But it led me to accelerate certain aspects of my investigation, particularly after you mentioned her blackmail video." He turned his computer screen toward us. "Vanessa's been planning this for a long time. Look at these searches from her laptop." The screen showed a forensic analysis of web searches dating back more than a year. Mitchell family net worth, Robert Mitchell business history, Tampa real estate scandal 2008, and most chillingly, inheritance rights spouse versus parent. She targeted Michael specifically. I realized aloud. Researched our family before ever meeting him. "Precisely," Drake confirmed. "And she was thorough. But here's where it gets interesting." He pulled up another document. "Elena Vasquez. Your husband helped her relocate after she blew the whistle on his corrupt partner. Paid for a new identity, housing, even a college fund for her daughter." "Robert felt responsible," I explained. "His partner's actions hurt many people. Elena risked everything to expose the truth." "Admirable," Drake nodded. "And completely legitimate. Every payment documented, reported to the IRS, nothing hidden." "Then what is Vanessa talking about with these payments and offshore accounts?" Martha demanded. "She's twisting the truth," Drake explained. "Taking real events and recasting them as something sinister. Classic blackmail technique. Enough reality to seem credible, enough distortion to create the appearance of wrongdoing." Relief washed through me. So Robert didn't have secrets. "None that I've found," Drake confirmed. "But Vanessa doesn't need actual evidence of wrongdoing. She just needs to create enough doubt, enough embarrassment, to pressure you into paying." "Where is she getting her information?" I wondered aloud. Drake's expression turned grave. "That's the truly concerning part. Someone had access to private records, banking information, correspondence between Robert and Elena. Someone close to your family." A chill ran through me as the implication became clear. "James Franklin? But he's been our attorney for decades. He wouldn't betray us." "Not Franklin himself, necessarily," Drake clarified. but someone in his office, perhaps an assistant, a clerk, someone with access to confidential files. We need to warn James, I said, already reaching for my phone. If there's a breach in his security. Already done, Drake assured me. I spoke with him this morning. He's conducting an internal investigation. My phone buzzed with a text from Charles, Michael awake and stronger. Police here taking full statement. Doctor says he can be released tomorrow. I showed Martha the message, relief evident on both our faces. At least Michael is recovering, I said. Physically, yes, Drake noted. The emotional recovery may take longer. He was right, of course. Learning your spouse tried to murder you isn't something you simply get over. Michael would need support, therapy, time to heal from this betrayal. Back to Vanessa. Drake continued, all business. The police are searching, but she's resourceful. She's evaded consequences before. And she's desperate now, cornered, exposed, with nothing left to lose. What do you think she'll do? Martha asked, voicing the fear we all shared. One of two things, Drake replied grimly. Run as far and fast as she can, or make one last attempt to salvage her plan. Which means coming after me, I concluded. I'm the obstacle, the one who recognized her for what she is, who secured the assets beyond her reach. Precisely. Which is why we need to set a trap. A trap? Martha looked alarmed. Catherine isn't bait. Not physically, Drake clarified. But we can use Vanessa's greed against her. Make her think she's winning. Lure her into the open. You want me to pretend to give in to her blackmail, I realized. With police involvement, he emphasized. Controlled circumstances. She believes she still has leverage, let's use that. I considered the proposal. The thought of facing Vanessa again terrified me, but the alternative, allowing her to escape, perhaps to target another family, was worse. I'll do it, I decided. But I want to see Michael first. Drake nodded. Of course. The police will need time to set things up anyway. Visit your son, then we'll finalize the details. At the hospital, I found Michael sitting up in bed. Color returned to his face. Charles sat nearby. The two of them engaged in quiet conversation that stopped when I entered. Mom. Michael's voice was stronger, though pain still shadowed his eyes. Charles told me everything. Drake's investigation, the ex-fiancés, all of it. I thought you should know the full picture, Charles explained. No more secrets. Thank you, I said sincerely, taking the chair beside Michael's bed. How are you feeling? Like an idiot, Michael replied bluntly. Like the world's biggest, blindest fool. You're not an idiot, I said firmly. You're a victim. Vanessa is expert at manipulation. She's done this before. I should have trusted you, he said, voice cracking. When you told me what you'd overheard at the wedding, I chose to believe her instead. If I'd listened. Don't, I interrupted gently. Don't torture yourself with if-onlys. What matters is that you're alive, and she's been exposed. They haven't found her yet, he said, fear flickering across his face. The detective said she could be anywhere. They will find her, I assured him, with more confidence than I felt. Drake is working with the police on a plan. I explained the proposed trap. Michael's expression darkened. No, he said flatly. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. It's controlled, I countered. The police will be monitoring everything. I don't care. She tried to kill me, Mom. She'll have no qualms about hurting you. Which is why we need to stop her, I said firmly. Not just for us, but for whoever she might target next. Charles, who had been listening silently, spoke up. Your mother's right, Michael. Vanessa won't stop. This pattern of behavior is too ingrained, and right now, she's cornered. The most dangerous state for a predator. Michael looked between us, conflict evident on his face. Finally, he sighed. At least wait until I'm out of here. I want to be there. Absolutely not, I replied immediately. You're recovering from carbon monoxide poisoning. Besides, seeing you would immediately alert Vanessa that something's wrong. She thinks I'm dead, he realized aloud, the words hanging heavy in the air. She left me to die in that apartment. Yes, I said gently. And that belief gives us an advantage. If she thinks she succeeded, she'll be more confident, more likely to make a mistake. After further discussion, Michael reluctantly agreed to the plan, on the condition that he would be kept informed throughout and that extensive safety measures would be in place. Charles promised to stay with him during the operation, providing updates in real time. Back at Drake's office, we met with the lead detective on the case, a sharp-eyed woman named Reynolds. She outlined the plan. I would respond to Vanessa's blackmail demand, agreeing to transfer funds to an account of her choosing. We would arrange a meeting at my condo to exchange documents, her supposed evidence against Robert for access codes to the trust. We'll have officers positioned throughout the building, Detective Reynolds explained. Audio and video surveillance in your unit. The moment she makes an explicit threat or demand, we move in. What if she sends someone else? I asked. A proxy? Unlikely, Drake interjected. This is personal for her now. And she'll want to see your face when she thinks she's won. Besides, Reynolds added, we'll be monitoring all entrances. Anyone entering your unit will be identified beforehand. The plan set, I composed a response to Vanessa's video message, my hands trembling slightly as I typed, "You win. I'll transfer the funds. But I need to verify what you have on Robert first. Meet me at my condo tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone or the deal is off." Her reply came unnervingly quickly. Smart decision. I'll bring copies of everything. Have the transfer authorization ready. And Catherine, if I see any sign of police, I release everything immediately. She took the bait, Reynolds said with grim satisfaction. Now we prepare. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. Michael was released from the hospital, installed in Martha's guest room where Charles could keep watch. My condo was fitted with discreet surveillance equipment. Police officers disguised as maintenance workers, residents, and delivery personnel were positioned throughout the building. Remember, Reynolds coached me the morning of the meeting. Keep her talking. Get her to explicitly state what she's doing, blackmail, attempted murder, all of it. The clearer her confession, the stronger our case. What if she has a weapon? I asked, the fear I'd been suppressing finally surfacing. We'll be monitoring every moment, she assured me. If there's any indication of a weapon or a direct threat, we intervene immediately. But I don't think she'll risk it. Her weapon is manipulation, not violence. I wasn't convinced. Someone who would turn on gas burners while her husband slept was certainly capable of direct violence. But I kept my doubts to myself. The trap was set, the players in position. There was no turning back now. At precisely 2:55 p.m., the concierge called up. "Mrs. Mitchell, there's a Vanessa Mitchell here to see you." "Send her up," I replied, my voice remarkably steady despite the hammering of my heart. I positioned myself in the living room, seated in an armchair facing the door. On the coffee table before me, a manila envelope that supposedly contained trust access codes. In reality, it held blank papers, a prop for our performance.
The doorbell rang.
I took a deep breath, mentally reviewing the detective's coaching, then moved to answer it. Vanessa stood in the hallway, as polished and beautiful as ever in a sleek black pantsuit. Only the hardness in her eyes betrayed her true nature. "Catherine," she greeted me coolly. "How generous of you to see me."
Come in, he replied, stepping gazide.
"Let's get this over with." She entered cautiously, surveying the condo with calculating eyes. Alone as requested. Though I did sweep the hallway for police. Trust issues, you understand. Completely. I closed the door behind her. "You have what you promised?" Vanessa patted her designer handbag. "Everything. Robert's correspondence with Elena, bank transfers, hotel receipts. Quite the paper trail for a man so concerned with his reputation." "I want to see it," I said firmly, "before we discuss any transfer." "Of course." She moved to the sofa, setting her bag beside her. "But first, I'm curious. How does it feel to know you were right about me, but too late to save your son?" The casual cruelty of the question stole my breath. She believed Michael was dead, killed by her hand, and she was smiling about it. "You underestimate a mother's instinct," I replied carefully. "I knew you were dangerous from the moment I overheard you at the wedding." Ah, yes, your little eavesdropping episode. She waved dismissively. A fortunate coincidence that positioned you as the grieving, paranoid mother-in-law. No one would believe your accusations after that performance. Michael did, eventually. Too late to help him. Her smile turned predatory. Such a shame. Carbon monoxide is a peaceful way to go, at least. Like falling asleep. Why? I asked, the question that had haunted me since that terrible night. Why kill him? If money was your goal, wouldn't he be more valuable alive? Initially, yes, she acknowledged, her tone conversational, as if discussing a business strategy. The plan was to isolate him from you, gain control of his assets, then divorce him in a few years with a substantial settlement. But then you complicated things by selling the beach house. So you adapted, I concluded, decided to eliminate both of us. Michael's death solves multiple problems, she explained coldly. As his widow, I inherit everything, including any claim to challenge your trust. The grieving daughter-in-law has much more sympathy than the divorced ex-wife. And with me discredited by your fabricated evidence against Robert. Exactly. Any accusations you made would look like the desperate attempts of a mentally unstable woman to smear her son's memory and his poor widow. She leaned forward. It was the perfect solution until someone warned you. Yes. Who did send that text? I wondered aloud. Someone who knew your plans. Someone with access to your phone, perhaps? Uncertainty flickered across her face briefly. A loose end I'll tie up later. Now, about that transfer? First, the evidence, I insisted. Show me what you have on Robert. She reached into her bag, extracting a thick folder. Copies only, of course. The originals are safely stored elsewhere, with instructions for release if anything happens to me. I accepted the folder, opening it to find exactly what Drake had described. Genuine documents showing Robert's assistance to Elena Vasquez, but arranged and annotated to suggest impropriety. Plane tickets to Tampa labeled Secret Rendezvous. Financial transfers marked Hush Money. Hotel reservations highlighted as Affair Locations. This is fiction, I said, looking up from the papers. Robert was helping Elena after your whistleblowing. Everything here was above board, reported to the IRS. Vanessa shrugged. Perhaps. But public perception isn't about facts, it's about narrative. And this narrative would devastate your family's sterling reputation. Imagine the headlines. Respected businessman's double life exposed. Widow defends husband's secret mistress. So your blackmail is based on lies, I concluded. My leverage, she corrected, is based on the damage these documents could cause, truth or not. Now, the transfer authorization. I reached for the manila envelope on the coffee table. It's all here. Access codes to the trust account. She took the envelope eagerly, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. I knew you'd be reasonable eventually. Mothers are so predictable, always protecting their family legacy. Speaking of family, I said carefully, where are your parents in all this? Do Harold and Diane approve of murder? Vanessa's smile dimmed slightly. My parents understand what's necessary. They've been teaching me the game since I was a child. The game of targeting wealthy men? Creating false identities. The game of survival, she corrected sharply. My father didn't fail in business. He was destroyed by people like your husband. People who manipulate the system, claim all the rewards, leave nothing for immigrants trying to build something. So, this is revenge? I asked, genuinely curious despite everything. This is justice, she replied coldly. Taking back what should have been ours. Your husband, your son, they had every advantage, every door open for them. My family had to create our own opportunities. By destroying others. By taking what we deserve. She opened the envelope, scanning the contents. Her expression darkened. What is this? These aren't access codes. No, I agreed calmly. They're not. Realization dawned on her face. This is a setup. Yes. She lunged for her bag, but before she could reach it, the front door burst open. Detective Reynolds entered, flanked by uniformed officers. Vanessa Mitchell, Reynolds announced, You're under arrest for the attempted murder of Michael Mitchell, extortion, and fraud. Vanessa's face contorted with rage. You stupid old woman, she spat at me. You have no idea what you've done. I've stopped you, I replied simply. That's enough. As the officers handcuffed her, reading her Miranda rights, Vanessa's composure cracked completely. He's dead, she screamed. Michael is dead. I made sure of it. Actually, Reynolds said calmly, your husband is very much alive. Recovering well, in fact. The shock on Vanessa's face was almost worth everything we'd endured. Impossible, she whispered. I sealed the windows, turned on the gas. Someone warned us, I explained. We got to him in time. As they led her away, still protesting, still threatening, I sank onto the sofa, adrenaline draining away to leave bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. Reynolds stayed behind briefly. Well done, Mrs. Mitchell, she said warmly. That was textbook. We have her confession on multiple counts, plus the documents she brought as blackmail evidence. What happens now? I asked. She'll be processed, charged, held without bail given the severity of the charges and flight risk. We're also bringing in her parents for questioning. Based on what she said here and evidence Drake has uncovered, they're likely co-conspirators in multiple states. After Reynolds left, I called Michael immediately. It's over, I told him, voice finally breaking with relief. They've arrested her. Thank God, he breathed. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, I assured him. Just tired. Very, very tired. I'm coming over, he insisted. Charles will drive me. I'd like that, I admitted. Very much. While waiting for them, I wandered to the balcony of my new condo, gazing out at the city spread below. In the distance, I could just make out the coastline where the beach house had stood. By now, Harrison Development had likely demolished it, erasing the physical structure, but not the memories it contained. I didn't regret selling it. That decision had saved both Michael's inheritance and possibly our lives. Vanessa had targeted the beach house specifically because of its value and meaning to our family. By removing it from the equation, I disrupted her plans enough to force her into desperate measures that ultimately exposed her true nature. Michael and Charles arrived within the hour. My son moved slowly, still recovering from his ordeal, but the embrace he gave me was strong and fierce. I'm so sorry, he whispered against my hair. For everything. None of this was your fault, I told him firmly, pulling back to look him in the eyes. Vanessa deceived you, just as she's deceived others before you. But I chose her, he insisted. I brought her into our lives. You fell in love, I corrected gently, with the person she pretended to be. There's no shame in that. We moved to the living room, where Charles had thoughtfully prepared tea. As Michael sank onto the sofa, the same spot where Vanessa had sat hours earlier, the reality of our situation seemed to fully hit him. What happens now? He asked, echoing my earlier question to Detective Reynolds. Legally, Vanessa will be prosecuted. Given the evidence and her confession today, conviction is almost certain. Her parents too, most likely. No, I mean... He hesitated. With us. With our family. I reached for his hand. We heal. We move forward. Together. The trust, he said suddenly. The conditions you set, they were to protect me from her, weren't they? Not because you didn't trust me. Exactly, I confirmed. I knew she would push you to challenge it. The forfeiture clause was designed to make that impossible. He nodded slowly. And now we can revisit those terms if you'd like. The immediate danger has passed. Charles, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. If I may offer a suggestion? Keep the trust as is, at least for now. It's well-structured, protects the assets during both your lifetimes, and the forfeiture clause discourages any future predators who might target either of you. Michael considered this, then nodded. You're right. After everything that's happened, I think I'd prefer the security of knowing those assets are protected. The three of us talked well into the evening, planning next steps. Michael would need divorce proceedings, though given Vanessa's criminal charges, that might be streamlined. We would both need therapy to process the trauma we'd experienced. The media would have to be managed. A scandal of this magnitude would inevitably draw attention. But beneath the practical considerations lay something more profound, a rebuilt trust between mother and son. Vanessa had nearly destroyed that bond with her manipulations. Instead, she had ultimately strengthened it, forging a new understanding between us through the crucible of shared survival. 1 month later, I stood in the courtroom as Vanessa Mitchell was arraigned on multiple felony charges. Michael sat beside me, his hand steady in mine. Across the aisle, Harold and Diane Carras, their true identity now established, awaited their own hearing, their carefully constructed facade finally shattered. Vanessa didn't look at us as she entered in handcuffs. Her designer clothes had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her perfect makeup absent, her cold eyes focused straight ahead. Only when the judge denied bail did she finally turn, her gaze locking with mine in pure hatred. I met her stare unflinchingly. The woman who had terrorized 3 families before ours, who had nearly killed my son, who had threatened everything we held dear, she held no power over us now. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Michael, who had been dreading this moment, surprised me by stepping forward. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, attempted to murder me for financial gain, he stated clearly, cameras flashing around us. She targeted my family, manipulated me, and would have killed my mother as well if she'd had the opportunity. But she underestimated us both. He reached for my hand again, particularly my mother, who recognized the threat when no one else did, who sacrificed her beloved home to protect our family's future, who never stopped fighting for the truth, even when I refused to see it. The questions came rapid fire after that. How had I known? What evidence had we gathered? Would we pursue civil damages? Michael fielded them all with newfound confidence, protective of me even as he praised my actions. Later, as we walked along the riverfront near my condo, he broached a subject I hadn't expected. "I've been thinking about the beach house," he said, watching a sailboat glide past. "About what it meant to our family. It held many memories," I acknowledged. "But in the end, it was just a structure." "Maybe," he conceded. "But it was also a symbol of Dad's success, of our family's stability. I hated that Vanessa's actions forced you to sell it." "It served its purpose," I said. "The sale protected our assets, exposed Vanessa's true intentions. I don't regret it." "What if we could rebuild it?" he suggested tentatively. "Not exactly the same, but something new on the same coastline. A fresh start." I considered the idea. Harrison Development bought the entire stretch for their resort project. "I've spoken with them," Michael revealed. "They're willing to sell back a parcel at the north end, the most secluded section. We could build something there, create new memories." The thought was appealing, I had to admit. Not to reclaim the past, but to build something for the future. A symbol of our family's resilience rather than our losses. "We could call it Phoenix Point," I suggested with a small smile. "Rising from the ashes." Michael laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him since before the wedding. "Perfect. Subtle, Mom. Very subtle." 6 months later, we stood on that secluded stretch of coastline, watching as construction began on our new family home. Smaller than the original beach house, but designed with both past and future in mind. My condo remained my primary residence. I had grown to appreciate its security and convenience, but Phoenix Point would be our gathering place, our sanctuary. The legal proceedings against Vanessa and her parents continued, revealing an astonishing pattern of fraud, manipulation, and exploitation spanning more than a decade. Justin Mercer and Gregory Woodward had both come forward with their stories, emboldened by our example. Even Peter Holloway had flown in from Europe to testify. Most surprisingly, we finally discovered who had sent the warning text that saved Michael's life. Melissa, the bridesmaid who had been privy to Vanessa's initial plotting, had been watching from the sidelines as events unfolded. When she realized Vanessa intended to murder Michael rather than simply manipulate him, she had drawn the line. "I thought it was just talk," she admitted when we met with her and the prosecutors. "Rich girl venting about her mother-in-law. planning to get her hands on some property. I never thought she'd actually try to kill someone. When I saw her that night, leaving Michael's apartment with this satisfied look on her face, I just knew I had to do something. Her testimony proved invaluable, filling in gaps about Vanessa's planning and prior schemes. In exchange for her cooperation, Melissa received immunity for her limited role as a confidant. I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Her warning had saved my son's life, whatever her earlier complicity. As the criminal case proceeded toward what prosecutors assured us would be lengthy prison sentences, Michael and I focused on rebuilding. Not just our physical spaces, but our relationship, our trust in others, our faith in the future. On the one-year anniversary of that fateful wedding day, we hosted a small gathering at Phoenix Point. The house was finally complete, a modern structure of glass and weathered wood that echoed the original beach house while establishing its own identity. Martha was there, with Charles, now her fiancé, James Franklin, who had uncovered and dismissed the clerk who had leaked our family documents, Thomas Drake, whose thorough investigation had proven so crucial. As sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Michael raised a glass in toast. "To new beginnings," he said, his gaze meeting mine across the gathering. "And to my mother, who taught me that true love isn't blind acceptance, it's seeing clearly enough to protect what matters, even when it's painful." I blinked back tears, remembering Robert, wishing he could see this moment of healing and renewal. Perhaps he could, in some way. Later, as guests departed and darkness fell, I walked alone to the water's edge. The waves lapped gently against the shore, eternal in their rhythm. In the distance, lights from neighboring properties twinkled like earthbound stars. I closed my eyes, feeling the sea breeze against my face. "We did it, Robert," I whispered to the night. "We protected our son. We saved what matters." The wind seemed to strengthen briefly, wrapping around me like an embrace. Perhaps just coincidence, perhaps something more. I chose to take it as affirmation. When I returned to the house, Michael was waiting on the deck, 2 glasses of Robert's favorite bourbon in hand. He offered one to me without a word, and we stood side by side, watching the moonlight on the water. "You know what I realized?" he said finally, breaking the comfortable silence. "Vanessa never understood what real wealth is." "Oh." I sipped my bourbon, savoring its familiar warmth. "She saw the beach house, the trust fund, Dad's business success, all the trappings of money. But she never saw the actual wealth." He turned to face me. "This. Family. Loyalty. The willingness to sacrifice for each other. That's the real inheritance Dad left us." "Yes," I agreed softly. "And it's the one thing she could never take, no matter how hard she tried." The trial concluded 3 months later with convictions on all counts. Vanessa received 30 years without possibility of parole. Her parents, slightly less due to their secondary roles, but still substantial sentences. As the judge read the verdict, I felt not triumph, but relief, a closing of a dark chapter, a chance to truly move forward. Michael has begun dating again, cautiously. A woman he met through his volunteer work at a children's hospital, the same hospital where he had received treatment for childhood cancer so many years ago. She seems kind, genuine, with a career of her own and no interest in his financial status. I've been careful not to show too much approval, not to push. Some lessons we've both learned well. As for me, I've found an unexpected second chapter in life. The trust one established with the beach house proceeds has become a foundation supporting victims of fraud and psychological abuse. My experience with Vanessa, painful as it was, gave me insight and purpose. Each person we help, each family warned before it's too late, transforms our trauma into something meaningful. Phoenix Point has become exactly what we hoped, not a replacement for what was lost, but a symbol of what can be rebuilt when love and truth prevail. On summer evenings, I often sit on its deck, watching the same eternal ocean that bordered our original beach house, and I feel a sense of completion, of justice served, of family preserved. Robert would be proud of us both, not just for surviving Vanessa's schemes, but for emerging stronger, wiser, more compassionate. For refusing to let betrayal harden our hearts or diminish our capacity for joy. The beach house is gone, but what it represented, our family's resilience, our bond, our shared history, that remains unshakable. And in the end, that's the only inheritance that truly matters. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right across the water, I imagine I can hear Robert's voice in its whisper. Well done, my love. Well done.